Hello, Internet. It's a podcast time.
Is that your
A podcast. Some kind of podcast.
Is that your form of the intro? Our internet.
Yep. It's Saturday, the
9th.
Yeah, I was getting there. I've got a dentist appointment on Monday, so I knew what the date was. I had to subtract 2, so, complicated maths.
The one time Zach has a calendar event means this is the one time he knows the actual date.
It's the 9th of January, 2016. 2016!
Have you got used to saying that or writing that yet?
I don't ever have to, so no.
Yeah, I'm still writing notes in 2015 and then going, no! Like, every time.
And that's Rob, and I'm Zach, and in the middle, there's Kippers.
Hi!
That's Richard Kemp.
To
give him his proper name, not the weird nickname that he somehow has.
Well, he gave himself it, in fairness. It's like, it's the one time giving yourself a name has stuck.
Surprisingly.
You only really, no one calls me Glacial, for instance.
Yeah, but that's not really a nickname that you used as a nickname. That was a username nickname.
I mean, you can't even shorten it, is the thing. Like Kippers, at least, is a nice shortening of DJKippling, but you can't really say, oi,
Glax.
What's going, Souls?
Iceman.
Exactly, and then it becomes Iceman. That's no good. Spoon. I suppose the spoon part.
Spoon. It's much better.
Yeah. Come on, Spoon. How is everyone? Well, we should explain where Dan is.
Yeah,
Dan is apparently skiing.
So expect him not to be back next podcast. Expect him to be in hospital next podcast.
I know he won't listen back to this, but does the concept of Dan skiing sound very, very bizarre?
Well, because he's had no previous inclination towards things of that nature or practice, as far as we know.
No, he's never skied before. He's going to learn whilst out there. Not even like a quick lesson before flying to wherever the hell he's gone. I'm assuming Austria.
Well, somewhere in the middle of Europe, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably not Canada. Not on a work trip, anyway. Yeah, that's the other weird thing. It's like a work group trip skiing.
Okay. So, but that seems
basically what that means is they'll have one day of skiing and then be hungover.
Yeah, well, yeah.
For the remaining 3 days.
I mean, that's just Dan's holidays in general, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure Dan's slightly pissed the entire time.
But, that seems like the kind of thing that you wouldn't want to have your entire staff do. Because you're likely to lose possibly 20% of them for the next several weeks afterwards.
Well,
from an injury.
What is the injury rate? What is the injury? And more importantly, what's the injury rate for non-skiers?
Yeah, for people who are just dragged into it from a work trip or whatever.
Well, no, you're dragged down from it.
Into the snow.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Just sounds like an insurance nightmare.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, does it get covered on company insurance or anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. If it's a company thing, do they pay for your medical bills? Not that we have to pay for our medical bills in general, but
I bet they. No, it is abroad. You're probably covered by one of those. Is it EVU cards or something? Where you have to carry one with you if you're abroad to be all oh, don't worry, the NHS will pay for whatever you do to me.
Sure, but that's not related to the work thing. That's just something you should have when you're going on holiday anyway.
But it's you don't really get to do establishments of employment have to have some kind of insurance for when you go out on a ridiculous bar crawl for a work party or whatever.
I don't think drunkenness is something you have to insure against, really. You hope that by the time that you're actually doing work again, that would have solved itself.
Maybe. Well, if it's a company-funded,
unless you get addicted to alcohol during the booze fest, and then you're oh no, I can't get any work done without having booze in me.
I've got to claim against the company because you made me like this. You disabled me with alcohol. You gave me this illness. I didn't ask for this.
Yes, exactly. So hopefully Dan doesn't die.
Yep. I reckon he'll come back with a hand injury, just to be awkward.
Yeah, that sounds like... And especially for his line of work, that's
exactly.
the number one worst injury for their employers.
Yeah, get used to one hand
our
typing.
Entire staff who spends the entire day typing at keyboards is now not able to...
It depends how bad it is. You might become very proficient with one of those weird one-handed keyboards.
It's true.
The ones that are like shaped like the inside of a mitt from baseball. A baseball mitt. Has it got a better name than that?
A mitt from baseball.
A mitt from baseball. A mitt. What is from baseball? Like, I don't know. Do they have a better name? Like, is it pitcher's mitt or?
No,
like,
I think they just call it a glove usually.
Glove? Is it a glove? It's not a mitt at all.
Well, it can be a mitt.
Okay. When is it a mitt and not a glove?
Depending on who's talking. I bet it's probably like differs by state or whatever, like in the South or something. That's the traditional ridiculous American thing.
So tell us about your adventures through American sporting fail videos.
Well, I've been watching not just fail, but also like success. Like weird video, because it's fun. It's weird just to watch American sports for American sports being weird. It's not like we never see them anyway. Apart from now, we see NFL all the time, I guess, because of the Super Bowl and random extra games that keep getting played at Wembley all the time.
Sure,
but yeah, all the other ones like basketball and ice hockey.
They have strange rules. Is the thing, isn't it? It's like there's always that odd rule where you're just like, wait, what? They can do that?
Well, it's the thing about watching these videos is they're obviously just like really short highlights of whatever moment or whatever's happening. So sometimes you have to listen to like what the commentators are saying and work out what the actual rule was that was happening at that exact moment.
Yeah, there was you showed me some of those clips last week, and there was just some things going on where it's just like, okay, what happened there?
Like
that looked like a video of just people walking around.
There was a thing in football which was quite a famous American football maneuver that like became famous for a while, but you know, it was one of those fads where it's like, you know, the trick plays that they do in college football where it's like, just
sure.
walk and pretend you don't have the ball and then no one will notice. That kind of classic maneuver.
You just walk all the way past their defence casually.
But there was one which was one of those complicated rules where I was like, why is that the thing where, you know how they snap the ball to the guy and then the guy passes it off to the other guy and all that stuff?
Football.
Yes, but like the thing is, only specific people can do that. Like the first person who snaps the ball to the second person, those are like defined people, and only they are allowed to touch the ball at that point, and he's only allowed to hand off to certain other people.
Oh, sure, yeah. The majority of the players aren't actually allowed to do anything with the ball, right? They just have to run interference from an interception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, what the trick play was, where like they snap the ball, but the guy who's meant to catch the ball from the snap deliberately fumbles it and then has another dude pick it up, because once he's fumbled it, he's allowed to pick it up.
Oh, because it's a free ball.
So it's like the deliberate fumble. That's a really difficult thing to do, and it's not surprising it didn't catch on that long.
How does it, like, can they, like, pick you up on that to be like, what if they reckon you deliberately fumbled it?
Well, it
like,
doesn't matter, does it? Because you fumbled it.
You still drop it.
As long as it hits your hands and then you don't catch it and it falls on the floor.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
The weirdest sporting move I've seen was, I don't know what it's called, but it's in Australian football.
Right.
Oh boy, that is weird.
Oh, I think I might have seen the same video.
Yeah, where basically, like, basically, the only rule is such as you're not allowed to use your hands on someone's back when trying to get a ball or something like that.
Right.
You're not allowed to push them, basically.
Yeah, you're not allowed to
There's the
touch them at
extension
all.
of that rule.
Yeah, and so what they do is they basically just jump on their shoulders with their knees, or just land on their back with their knee and lift off of that to grab the ball, and it's totally legal.
Yeah.
What?
Basically, it's like he jumped. The video that I saw, it's like he runs up behind him, jumps high enough that his knees are on his upper back, so he basically kneels on his back as the other dude is going forwards and just grabs the ball.
Yeah,
because it's like extra height.
Shit.
Yeah,
wait,
and
so
they're allowed to do that.
Oh wait, so they can do that as long as they do
As long
it
as
with
they
their
don't touch
own,
them with the hands.
and that's allowed with their own teammates. Is
well,
that like
probably? But
is that how you're
Probably.
describing it?
No,
Like,
they're doing it on
opponents.
On the opponents, yeah, and
Wow.
that's legal.
that's crazy.
I saw another one that's sort of similar, of like in basketball. So it's like it's perfectly legal to pass to yourself if you bounce it off an opponent.
Oh,
So sometimes when they're doing like a throw in from the back line or whatever, trying on the opponent's end where they're trying to get the basket, sometimes they'll just bounce the ball, because when the opponents are looking at their other teammates guarding them, you just bounce the ball off their back and then score.
Oh man, that's pretty
Because
good.
you're doing the throw in to yourself and then you just basket it.
Yeah, it's technically just been passed back to you, hasn't it, I guess?
Yeah. That's ridiculous as well. And then, of course, the other videos that I had to watch is all the, like, the success ones where it's, like, all the hilarious buzzer-beating NHL,
Oh, yeah.
and basketball.
Basketball buzzer beater.
Where it's just like, throw it from the other side of the court. Woof! and then hope that it goes in, and sometimes it does.
Yeah, because it's as long as you've thrown it before timeout, isn't it? That's crazy, that one is. Especially the ones where the other team has already started celebrating, right? And they go, they can't possibly get it now, and they just land it.
And I also saw another related one to that where, I don't think it was a buzzer beater, I think it was just the shot clock thing, where the shot clock was running out. It's like, you've only got 0.1 of a second, so the guy who was receiving the pass basically didn't really catch the ball, he just, shoveled it as it went by. He knelt down and shoveled it backwards over his head into the basket.
Oh, wow.
It was okay, because that counts.
That's amazing.
Because he was only touching it for a fraction of a second before the shot clock ran out.
I think, the weird thing about American sports is I think they are better for these odd moments rather than being games I'd want to watch in full, if you see what I mean. Like, watching basketball seems like it's just, go to the other side. Go to the other side.
The majority of basketball is just score at one end, and score at the other end, and score at the other end, and score at the other end.
And then this ridiculous thing will occasionally happen.
But not often enough.
Speaking of a big American sports,
Yeah.
CSGO is being on national television on the sports channel this year.
News!
I can't remember what channel it is, TNT or something?
Or was it one of the ESPNs?
No, it's Turner. I don't know what their channel is, but it's the one with who Shaq and stuff does on the NBA and all that.
Oh yeah, and by the way, the other thing that's American sport related is the Super Bowl's coming up, and it's Super Bowl L.
That's great.
We've made it to 50, so now we get the hilarious L.
Super Bowl.
Yep, Super Bowl.
That's great. So, who are Turner?
I say they're a network owner. I don't know exactly, but I think the sports channel's called TNT or something.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a thing that I've heard of. I'm not sure whether I'd heard of it as a sports channel.
Well, yeah, I think most people have heard of TNT.
Yes, that too.
But yeah, they show lots of NBA and all the main sports stuff. And now they're going to be doing CSGO for a season.
It'll be interesting to see how they do it, like what their style will be, or if they're just going to.
Well, it's basically going to be the same as all the other tournaments because they've already got all the common commentators that you get from the other tournaments are basically doing it, so it's not really any different. But
it's just the same as what you'd watch online, is it? Or is it the same as sort of like Gfinity's stuff?
Yeah, kind of it's got some of the guys from Gfinity there. It's got the big dudes that normally do DreamHack or the majors or whatever. So it's pretty cool. And it's going to be a ridiculous prize pool of $2.5 million or something, which is the biggest prize pool ever.
For CS,
yeah.
I was about to say, I think the Halo Championships have reached
That's
3.
Microsoft
put one in, and then the rest of it was going to be funded through the Warzone packs in the game. I think it's hit 3 million now.
Which is still not that much when you look at LoL.
Oh, no.
Which is 50 million or something.
In terms of League or Dota, that's nothing.
Dota, wasn't it? Yeah, not League.
But even so, they pale compared to those. I don't even know what the StarCraft scene is like for.
StarCraft's dead now.
Is it?
Yeah, it didn't seem to. Well, I mean, I don't know about Korea or whatever. Whether they continue playing Brood War instead. Probably.
No, they still play StarCraft 2 because they just released a new expansion.
Well, yeah,
so they still play it. But
so that's the question: did Legacy of the Void kill it, or
no, it was dead before that.
Yeah, it was probably
during
the second
part of the
expansion.
Swarm. Yeah. It kind of died off. It's still pretty big. In Korea, it's massive still, but only because Koreans are the only ones that are good at it.
Yeah, okay. So,
there are some good Europeans, but generally speaking, it's all about the Koreans.
So when we watched it at EGX, that was during its already dead phase?
Yeah, it was dead. It's dead.
Oh, blimey. Okay, didn't realise. eSports, man. Fickle things.
So that's
it's because of what we were talking about before, how it's not something you can just pick up and watch unless you know about the game.
It definitely isn't.
Whereas stuff like CSGO and that is definitely, you can just watch it and get an idea of what's going on.
I still think, oh man, I'm surprised there should be more Rocket League stuff. I'm surprised Rocket League...
Yeah, Rocket League is the one that...
exploded into this scene, right? I mean,
That they haven't really applied a lot of esport-friendly stuff to the game, though.
That's true. It would probably have to be modded in at this point, but, Was it... figures came out for just how much they've sold. They have done bananas numbers on that game. And that's, sales, not just...
the free period.
Yeah. They're up there with the top 10 games of the year type stuff. They've done incredibly well.
Well, the thing is, didn't MLG run a few tournaments for it? But now
probably
MLG's been brought out by Activision.
Here's the news.
Also news.
Good transition.
Yep. News.
I knew it was coming because that was leading nicely into it.
Yep. Activision have bought. Well, is it Activision or? Well, I suppose they're the same company. Activision Blizzard have bought MLG
for the tiny sum of 46 million. which is like nothing. They spent $6 billion on a mobile development last year.
Yeah, but that King Games have a pretty damn good profit record.
So yeah, get shit on MLG.
I'm not sure eSports actually have much of a profit record thus far, in terms of being a business.
No.
So, I can sort of understand why that number isn't into the hundreds of millions, but
yeah, and then they claimed that they wanted to make it into the ESPN of eSports, which is not really a thing to aspire to because ESPN is kind of shitty, and also it's not going to happen because no competitor's going to let them stream their game, surely.
Well, the thing about MLG as well is probably why it was so cheap, because it's kind of been...
It's fallen off.
Yeah, it's been dying off heavily compared to stuff like ESEA or ESL or whatever it's called.
ESL, isn't it?
ESL, yeah. Which is buying out pretty much every other... Speaking of buyouts, ESL bought DreamHack as well.
Oh, really?
So they pretty much own all the big...
Oh, wow.
All the big tournament and esport kind of things.
Yeah, it's like...
Maybe there's like they saw the need. It's like... I reckon, like, to an extent, maybe Blizzard saw ESL's grow and were like, well, A, we want a bit of that. B, you can't really have a market like this without a competitor.
But you can't have your competitor be tied to a video game.
Yeah, that's the problem as well, isn't it?
There's going to have to be... It depends how much... Like, just owning it doesn't mean anything, right? It depends... Like, Activision and Blizzard don't necessarily have to have their hands... Although they will try, obviously.
Yeah, they're going to push their games at the front, aren't they? Yeah. They're not going to have...
anyone else.
CSGO on the top.
They probably won't let anyone else stream on their servers.
Do you reckon Activision see this as a somewhat cheap way of perhaps saying, hey, you know what? Maybe this is the kick we need to get Call of Duty more popular again.
Maybe they're just have a hope that StarCraft 2 is going to come back in the non-Korean territories. Because it's like, if you get the MLG in there cheap, you might be able to make a play to make that become important again.
I think they're betting on Overwatch becoming a big esport thing.
But that doesn't work, as we well know from everyone who's tried it up to this point.
For example.
Well, no, TF2 didn't try to be an esport. That was the thing. As soon as anyone says that they're trying to make an esport, you know that's not going to work. Like Evolve.
But that's the same with a lot of games, though. They don't try and be an esport; they just turn into one.
No, that's fine. That's then responding.
That's how it's meant to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Because that means that's the community going. You know what? This is going to work for this, and then the developer being smart and going, well, fine, let's double down on this. Yes. Admittedly, you could argue it took Valve 20 years to get CS where it needs to be.
Well, to be fair, Valve still don't really consider CS as a esport in some ways.
They're almost not really involved, are they?
Because the way they develop the game is more catered for the esport scene than it is the esport scene. 90%
I don't know about that. Like, Go was the change, right? Like, CSGO was obviously when they paid attention, I think, because the structure of how they've done ranked in that is...
The ranked was...
The actual, just the way of the structure of that game mode
you say that, but...
great for that.
The actual ranked mode... has been the way the round timers, the bomb timer is completely different to what the major league timers and all that kind of stuff was.
Oh, sure.
So in terms of actual esport, the actual main matchmaking mode was completely different to the esport scene.
I think they kind of have to. Well, I sort of understand that because, in a way, you need to make the game accessible to all, and then
that's
why that's the competitive mode. Though they should make it equal to the esports.
Well, they should just have
that's what works. That's why esports use.
Or maybe as you rank up,
they should have it tiered, right? Linked to your actual rank. So as you rank up, you progress more towards the esports style.
Kind of like what StarCraft did. I don't know if they still do, but in StarCraft 2, the lower ranks had the normal timer. And all this kind of stuff, and then as you got to Master and that, you actually played it at 2 times the speed of what you normally do because that's what they play it at. In actual matches.
I never realised that. I always just assumed StarCraft was bonkers. Not that they actually play the game at 2 times.
I don't know if it's 2 times, but it's much faster than what normal. Because when you watch old StarCraft 2 matches, you'll see the clock going faster than real time.
Oh, I never realised.
But when you're in lower leagues, it just goes normal speed.
That's really interesting.
But but now they've updated it so it doesn't. The clock actually works properly now,
okay.
No matter what speed.
Okay.
But I think CS:GO now is becoming more in line with esports because they changed the round times and stuff again in the last update, the Christmas update, and I think all the leagues and stuff are using those timers, but I'm not entirely sure.
And with the exception of the bonkers new gun,
which has been banned from everything.
Yeah, understandably.
Although they nerfed it to hell and it's rubbish now and it's still banned.
Like with the exception of that new gun, they have been kind of laser focused on making sure CS works and works as fairly as possible in the last few years.
Yeah, but every update they do is pretty much the opposite of what everyone in the esports scene has been asking them to do. So, for example, they recently changed the spray of rifles and stuff at distance and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And first shot accuracy was slightly more random than it was before. And everyone was like, why the fuck have you done that? We've actually asked you to make it more accurate, not less accurate, because that's what everyone wants.
Because it encourages more skill, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. They want it to be skill, not random, which is what Valve has been introducing a lot of. But luckily they reverted it afterwards because everyone was like, this is shit, what are you doing? But the fact that they keep adding these updates that are so not what the esports scene wants.
I can get it, because Valve probably don't make their money from
they make their money from skins.
Yeah, they don't know. They want people to get into CS so they can get into the ridiculous skin economy. They probably don't make out of CS as esports culture.
No, but those sort of changes, casuals won't notice anyway. So it doesn't make any difference. If you're going to make changes like that, you might as well make it good for what the esports scene is that's rapidly growing. Because casuals won't care, basically.
I don't know. I obviously don't know a lot about Dota, for instance, but I can't say that. I don't remember hearing of any crazy, ridiculous updates like that happening to Dota. Yeah, they bounce it all the time, but they never seem there never seems to be a ridiculous change to be like the whole community is suddenly going, "Whoa, what did you do?"
The only thing I can think of is when they switched from Source 1 to Source 2, that caused a bit of a backlash.
Did some stuff change as that?
Well, nothing really changed, but it was just because it fucked up people's settings.
It's just like one of those very slight engine things where it's like, it's almost unnoticeable, except if you've played this for a million hours and you're kind of adapted to the very precise... It's almost like a frame rate glitch could fuck you at that point, where it's like, when I do this move, the frame drops by 1 second. Oh, fuck.
It might be that perhaps it performed differently on different people's rigs or whatever, so whatever they were used to suddenly isn't good enough, or...
Yeah. That's the problem with that kind of patch. I mean, in the end, surely the best solution for all of this stuff is just, leave it as a configurable option at some point. I mean, obviously you have to have, anti-cheat stuff, so you have to lock down a certain amount of things, but, it's even in Team Fortress, they did it at one point where it's you can turn off randomized spread for the guns.
Oh, yeah,
it's that's an option that you can just toggle on the server end.
Really?
It's a cool... Yeah, you know how shotguns in that game, have a random sort of spray of the little pellet bits that come out? They made it so that was basically a uniform grid pattern.
Yeah. Not very many servers actually used that for that long. But,
but it was interesting.
It was a thing that you could turn on.
I kind of like that, but...
It made some moments where you're perhaps outside of a shotgun's useful range a lot more predictable.
But also sort of made those guns effective at too long a range as well.
Yeah.
It was like when they had the Force of Nature, which had a T spread of the bullet pellets. Because of the vertical strife of that T, it was easy to hit people really far away because they just line that line up with the people, and one of those bullets is going to hit them.
Yeah, I mean, for shotguns, I can understand it being random because shotguns by nature are pretty random.
Yeah, and they don't do a great deal of damage at distance. It's you always want that one pellet right to be well aimed. Perhaps.
I mean, let's be honest,
that does 2 damage at range in that game. It's it's nothing.
Let's be honest. Someday in some game, and it's probably already happened, it's not any of the famous games, you're just going to have the shotgun where it just projects a circle and the area of the circle that the person filled is proportional to the amount of damage. Yeah. Don't do it with individual particles. I mean, come on. That's the worst.
Yeah, I suppose that is the fairest way in terms of a skill-based shooter, perhaps. It's it's not particularly realistic, but yeah, okay. That
for something like a Quake style game, probably that would be the best option.
If you're going for an arena shooter, then sure, right? But then you could argue no one's really managed to nail an arena shooter of late. I haven't checked in to see what the new UT is like.
There is a game, I don't know what it's called, Reflex or something. That's going to be pretty good. I think it's called Reflex anyway. But there's a few CS:GO, ex CS:GO pros that got banned because of match fixing. Have moved to that, and that's going to be pretty good. I think it's called Reflex, but.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think, like, other than Nexus, which attempted to...
Yeah, that didn't really work. Next Wiz, was it?
Yeah, some people called it Nex Wiz. It's like Nex Uiz, isn't it? Is how it's spelled. Nex Uiz.
That was all right.
That was all right. I mean, it was unfortunate in that it was on CryEngine and so ran a bit like shit.
Yes.
And was unbelievably fast. Like, I've never played a game I think like that just moves at that pace, and I couldn't keep up and found it really difficult to learn because the only people that were playing it at the time were super hardcore.
Naturally.
I didn't really like the maps either.
I thought they were okay. I think it was just hard to learn because of the speed of the game and the way it made it difficult to learn and difficult to pick up. I don't think the weapon design was terrible. It's just one of those things where something all the individual parts are fine, apart from perhaps the graphics engine, and somehow it didn't quite come together, and I can't really explain why. Maybe it was probably just slightly too hardcore for most people, I reckon. But I think a lot of arena shooters recently have had that problem, right? You could Shoot Mania was almost too focused.
Shoot Mania was a completely weird thing anyway.
Yeah. That was really cool though. Like in terms of its competitiveness, the idea of that was really cool.
Like, that's what I mean. I sort of appreciate the idea, but again, that didn't really take the world by storm again for some reason.
The thing that I like is competitive games that are pretty simple in terms of the stuff that's in it.
Yeah.
Because when that's why I'm not particularly fond of MOBAs, because there's like 50, 60 different characters for it or more.
Yeah.
And how can you balance that? Like, realistically?
I mean, it's impressive
how
that
can
they
you
get
hope
it.
to learn all that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even from an out, if you just want to be a spectator, you don't actually want to play that game. That is an almost impossible task.
Plus, they then add a complication of millions of items that you have to choose from when you're leveling up.
And then you got commentators that say like that. The game is so complicated that the commentators have to say everything in acronyms, and like
because it's quite fast as well at times.
Or BKB.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the other trouble with that kind of game from the eSports perspective is generally what happens is like huge periods of nothing, and then everyone just uses all of their skills in 1 second.
Yeah. Because you get your ult that has like a 50-second cooldown or something, so you can't use it for most.
Don't get me wrong, I kind of find watching the international fascinating, but I'm not really sure what I'm watching.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's like you're not...
Stuff just sort of happens, and you see that one team is winning, one team is starting to get the advantage, and that's about all you can gather. You can't really see how they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, the appreciation of the skill is lost a little.
It's like there's
Which is why I want to see something like Rocket League, something like physicsy, right? You can immediately appreciate because that appeals to the common man, right? You can see what's going on. And maybe CS:GO to that to a lesser extent because it's you can see what's happening, right?
But you don't. You still need to understand the core mechanics to understand why it's impressive. That's the thing.
Yeah,
with that as well.
to a point. Yeah.
Like the sprays and stuff like that. Yeah,
definitely the spray thing.
Like you can watch it and still understand it without.
That guy headshot.
Yeah, exactly. But
that guy got the bomb.
You won't necessarily have that appreciation of the skill unless you dive into it a bit more. But that's the same with most sports.
And it is a difficult thing to do the camera work for, right? No one's solved that problem with games like that.
It's pretty tough.
Being able to actually spectate them well.
Well, they're a lot better at it now because they delay. Especially with like TV based ones, is they actually delay it so they can choose the right camera at the right
roll
time.
back and then scan ahead.
Yeah,
I am really interested to see what they do with the Halo Championship because just based on, I mean, as much as I have to knock them for doing an esports demonstration at a conference, right? I think it was at Gamescom or something.
They've done it a couple of times.
Yeah,
haven't they?
And they had the Liverpudlian basically trying to commentate you through a Halo 5 Guardians match. But they had integrated graphics into the
the esports stuff they added that was really cool.
But we haven't actually seen any of that in practice. Right?
Yeah, we don't know whether that was post or
or
whether that could be made in the game.
No, I mean, you can do it now if you booted up the game and go into spectate mode. No, you can spectate like any of your friends that are playing and do it all in that.
Can you?
I did it to you when I was waiting to join your party.
Wow!
You can do it.
I did not know.
Yeah, it's got spectate mode, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
So if you're playing and I'm waiting to join, I can just spectate you while I'm waiting.
That's awesome. More games need to have that.
Yeah, definitely.
It does seem like, in theory, Rocket League could be a good one for already having solved the camera problem. Because, like, the replays of goals, those are almost always pretty good in terms of seeing what the fuck's actually happening most of the time.
It just follows the ball, doesn't it? Most of the time. And
Well, and like the person who's about to hit it and whatever, like you see where the setup is.
I thought maybe it might work if someone managed to do like. Do you remember when FIFA experimented with proper 11-on-11 games?
Yeah,
And it's like surely that works as too, right?
Because it's like hilarious.
Because that's there's a proper the impressive feat is there. It's like they're doing all the team coordination, but they're just doing it with a controller rather than with your
That would
feet.
be really cool to watch, but
well, at that point you're just watching football though, because football the camera angle is the football camera
I mean,
angle.
yeah, this is the thing. Games still need to do something that's perhaps like outside of what's possible in reality, right? They still need to be doing that to be appealing. Otherwise, why would you not just do the real thing or watch the real thing? So I don't know, maybe an 11-on-11 different sport like that can be visualized like that with some central. A lot of sports work because they have a central object, right?
Yeah.
Like the ball. It's like it's the thing you focus on, and it's what guides everyone's eyes. And it's like in a way you need a match that has something like that, like an individual focal point that makes the drama. The focal point makes the drama. And it's like, if you can make a game that perhaps does that, Rocket League is obviously just football. I'm not saying you need to mimic football, but
It's like theoretically,
come up with something that has that style of mechanic.
Theoretically,
maybe you're onto
that
something.
should be why capture the flag should work. Except that
Yeah, 'cause
doesn't
they're-
really, because the majority of the time the capturing the flag bit is actually boring. There's no
Yeah.
actual fight on
it's all about the
and
fragging to get the flag
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
clear the way for the flag or whatever.
And there's still at least two things going on at once, right? Perhaps the better variant of that are things like bomb tasks in the old bomb game types in Halo,
Yeah, maybe.
like because those were cool. Neutral bomb was a fun mode, right? And I'm surprised they haven't brought that. Does that even exist in the new one? Like, or there's probably a way to forge it, I guess. But
Probably.
now that Forge is out, that happened. News. Forge is out.
Sort of news.
Yeah. And a couple new maps, which I think we've talked about before, actually. On here.
I think we did.
Which I don't think much of, if I'm honest.
So that was the eSports discussion, I guess.
eSports. It's a fascinating space still. But
Yes. And you know what else is a fascinating space that is yet to be resolved in exactly the same way?
what's going on?
Virtual reality.
I thought you were going to talk about Star Citizen for a second there.
Well, that's a fascinating space. That's different.
Yeah. Did we mention the? Oh, I think we did, didn't we? The second phase of that came out like the second alpha or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
Version 2, long.
Yeah.
So yeah, virtual reality, yeah. Let's talk about the Oculus news.
How much are you willing to pay for an Oculus Rift, Kiffers?
Not $600.
Well, it's
whatever
not
it was.
just
Was
an
it
Oculus
$500?
Rift. It's an
get a
Oculus Rift
controller,
and
right?
Xbox One controller
Yeah.
with the wireless adapter and 2 games, sort of, if you can call those games.
Aren't they really shit?
One of
From what I heard.
I mean, Eve is probably fine.
Yeah,
but
one of them's Valkyrie. That's
it's
Yeah, that
still not
one
much
is
of a game,
alright.
I guess.
But that's more of a demo, isn't it, really?
Well, yeah, it's like there's only so much
they've
you can do.
fleshed it out a lot since what they were showing. Like there's a lot more to it.
But
now.
the other one I was talking about, that was supposed to be really shit.
I don't know what it is.
It's like some kind of first-person platformer, right?
Yeah, something like
I mean,
that.
it would have to be first-person.
Yeah.
You would assume in the Oculus.
But yeah, I think it's way too expensive.
And it's also
Way
Well,
too
that equates
expensive.
to they've said it's like £499 the UK version.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yeah. It seemed like lots of people were pissed off about how screwed up the exchange rate there. Like Europe, it's like
Oh, they always
750
screw up.
euros.
Oh, well, yeah, that sounds crazy. Yeah, but the UK rate is £499, which still isn't great in terms of conversion, but isn't
Well, the fact
isn't unusual.
was that the price and the spec requirements are ridiculous that 90% of people probably don't have.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. I mean, the spec requirements make sense because you're powering what is almost a 4K screen on your face at least 120 hertz. That's a hell of a display rig on your face to begin with, and powering resolutions like that for any game requires a bit of a monster rig. So I can understand why the requirements are there.
Yeah, but it's not going to sell, is it?
Yeah. What's the confusing part? It's like, okay, fine, that's the recommended maybe. Like, can't you just run? Can you run the new Oculuses, but with like oculi? We're going to call them oculi? No, they're Rifts, I suppose.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to run the Rifts at a lower resolution if you want to, right, and make them look like the DKs, or?
Well, the thing that worries me is I tried the PS1 at Eurogame or whatever it was.
PlayStation VR.
And that's meant to be pretty near final at this point.
Yeah.
At the final res and stuff, and it still looked really like shitty to me. Like, and that worries me quite a lot.
But that was those are like 1080 screens, I think, in your face on those.
Yeah, but still, I expected way better than that.
It's because you're so close to it, is the thing. Like, actually, a lot of the pixels get lost because they're in your peripheral. When you're put that close to those screens.
Because they were talking about that being I think it was John Carmack who was talking about that being a problem at some point that he was trying to solve, where it was like, can we make screens that have like actual patches of higher resolution nearer the centre of the view or whatever?
Yeah, they have developed something for that. I can't remember what it was called, but
whether that's made that into the final product is...
Yeah, I wouldn't...
Like, you'd have to get very specialist panels.
But you'd need...
And specialist graphics drivers to handle all that.
Yeah.
I'm sure Carmack could pull it off, but perhaps they're not there yet.
Well, the way they were talking... I can't remember if it was them talking about it or someone else, but the way they were talking about it is you'd need, like, eye tracking so it knew where to...
Yeah, it would have to be a driver-based thing, not a physical thing. You couldn't make a special screen because you're not always looking at the middle of the screen.
No, but I guess you could still take it if you had enough of a pan around, or if you had enough of a field around your vision, then there are still limits to how far your eyes can pan.
Yeah, if you're going all the way into the peripheral, like if you're going further than you can turn your eye and then some to just fill in the black space.
If you're going to what is it, the full 220 or what it is? It's a crazy angle, isn't it? It's more than 180.
Yeah,
like you can actually see.
Speaking of eyes, here's a random conversation fact that I saw somewhere on the internet and then went and looked up on Wikipedia. Just this is a random section making an appearance in the middle of the news.
Yeah.
I was reading about the totally weird way that the brain processes visual information.
Yeah, which is messed up.
Which is weird, but it was I think I'd read this before in the past and just forgotten about it again. But it's the actual explanation for why when sometimes you look at a clock, the first second seems longer.
Oh, yeah, that thing. I've looked this up ages ago, but I can't remember the reasoning.
It's a really weird bit of, it's almost like sort of time travel almost, because when you look at something, when your eye is moving, you're not actually seeing anything. Which is a really confusing thing. You're only actually seeing images when your eye is still because your brain doesn't want to see blur. So when your eye's moving, it just basically ignores all that data and then backfills at either end.
Whoa.
So when you look at a clock and that first second seems longer, that's because for the period that your brain is backfilling, it's taken the still image of a clock and just filled it backwards in time, basically. So you think you're seeing the clock and the second is taking longer, but you're actually just seeing a still image of the clock for that extra period of time.
They say, right, I've heard many theories about this stuff, and there's one theory is that our perception of consciousness can be as much as half a second behind.
Well, naturally, because that is actually that's how long the whole processing part of vision takes.
Which is nuts, because our reaction times to things are much, much lower than that.
Yeah.
So, we can, if we're looking to react to seeing a green light at a starting grid, for instance, we've sort of almost trained ourselves to do that to an extent where it can happen before we're aware that it's happened. That's...
Or visually aware, anyway.
That's insane. That starts breaking my head when I start thinking of things like that. Because I may have made a decision half a second ago that I am not yet aware of.
Yes.
I may have accidentally pulled the trigger on this fart. And
assuming your butt reactions are faster than half a second.
Not made the decision quickly enough to realise, no, that was a bad idea. This one's going too far.
So yeah, that was the weird eyeball fact that I read about. It's completely ridiculous. I think it was because I saw it on some random blog post or some shit where it was in reality, you're blind for 90% of the time because you're not actually seeing anything while your eyes are moving.
Yeah, the brain apparently fills in a lot of what you see. It's it's used to a lot of what you see because of convention, or I know exactly what this house looks like.
But then when I was also thinking about it, it's that also kind of explains why motion blur in games is so weird looking sometimes, because you don't actually see that in real life.
No, motion blur is only a thing in games because that's how cameras work.
Yeah, because if you say you're playing Team Fortress and you've got motion blur turned on and you're sweeping your head around, everything gets all blurry. It's that's not...
I mean, it happens a little bit, and I'm doing it right now and swishing my hair around. It's not totally unavoidable. You get a bit of it, but it's just not the same. It's not as extreme as what you get. Like the great way to sort of do this is like if you're watching TV, for instance, and you're watching, say, a sports broadcast of, let's go with football because I don't think football does this. If you watch football and then you compare it to, say, an episode of Top Gear, like football actually is quite blurry. Like in terms of like ball trajectories and things like that, like you'll because it's only recorded at 30,
right?
25 in the UK, and you're seeing, it is 25, isn't it? Yeah, just had to think about that for a second. Yeah, you're only seeing like the like motion blur in a way looks more natural than that, other than seeing what they do on Top Gear or car shows where there is no blur. They've like tuned the camera so like the shutter speed is so fast for those 25 frames that the blur is dramatically reduced. So you can see all the details on those wheels as they move real fast. And the difference is really pronounced. It's kind of that. That's what where games are at now is they're using motion blur to simulate that camera effect.
Is that going to be a problem in the Oculus? That's the question. Like, will motion blur make you even more sick?
Well, the theory is...
Because it's like you're not seeing the movement correctly.
Well, if we're doing it
not
right...
going to have that at all, are they?
If we're doing it right, eventually it will go away. In theory, and I've seen this on ridiculously high-spec projectors a few years back, if you're running a video at 300 frames per second, that effect disappears completely, meaning the blur that you see is the natural blur of your eyes, as opposed to camera blur at that point. There'll be some of it, I guess, but it's at 300 frames per second, the refresh of what you're seeing just is imperceivable. Yeah, so motion blur as a technology will be no longer needed.
Yeah, but does that still...
Because you still have to hit 300, which we'll never do.
The trouble with the Oculus, though, is that, like... Or any VR, I guess, but we're just talking generally. The trouble with it is, though, is, like... It's the difference between just moving your eyes around that screen that you're looking at and actually moving your head to move the view of those screens. It's like there's two separate things that aren't necessarily attached with the same blur.
Yeah. There's a logic there.
I'm sure at this point it doesn't matter because just having VR at all is a thing. We'll worry about making it really good later.
Yeah, just make it work well enough for now. As eye shifts, as you mentioned earlier, eye tracking and modelling how humans or animals or anything living really moves their eyes.
Assuming they have eyes.
Assuming they have eyes. is kind of an untapped thing, isn't it? Like in video games. Really.
All I remember...
It's not something that really has been greatly attempted because it's really hard. And how would you control that other than using your eyes?
It's like, all I remember about eye tracking is that, it's a technology that's been around forever because the only thing I remember for eye tracking is when they used to use it for, showing how bad people were at driving. But it's look at where this person's looking when they're driving. They're just looking right there and not even looking anywhere else ever.
And it's still used extensively in, user interface design.
And
stuff like that, and website
the hotspot
behaviors.
Type thing.
Yeah.
Looking at where people are looking.
Yeah, it's been used for ages. And, I've even used 3D screens back in the days when they were still trying to figure out how to do 3D that had lenticular lenses built into the screen.
Yeah, that would follow your actual eyes.
Yeah, just a camera and eye tracking software to work out where I was and produce the perfect 3D for where I was. And it worked brilliantly. And this is 5 or 6 years ago that I saw it, and it was amazing tech, but obviously it only worked for one person, so they couldn't sell it.
Yes, not on the TV anyway.
No.
Probably really expensive as well.
And haven't I been using eye tracking for fighter pilots and stuff like that for target acquisition?
Sure, the military aspect.
I think it's helicopter gunners or something. They use it for target acquisition, so the computer knows where to roughly.
The whole point, the whole thing about modern military jets and stuff is they actually have heads-up displays now. That's actually a real thing. It's not just a computer game thing any longer.
No, that's been there for years.
Yeah, exactly.
Although it is just sort of projected, it's a reflection on glass.
Some of them, because they
have it built into helmets.
Yeah, they have those helmets now that actually, that's still a reflection on glass technically. It's just the glass is a lot closer.
I do wonder how that looks if it's a focal point problem on how they get around that, right?
Yeah, you'd think that's theoretically not a problem in VR, I guess, because you're always looking at the screen. It's always the same distance away.
You could always project what you wanted to see at the distance of what you're looking at.
Yeah.
We can do that with computers. But I guess they could do that with if they had a different, if you have a screen in each eye, right?
Yeah.
You can do that, right? Because you can simulate the. Oh no, but your focal distance is still.
Yeah,
different.
you're not actually looking at that distance
No.
necessarily.
Yeah, that's a tricky
You might have
one.
to have eye tracking for that as well.
That's a tricky one.
So yeah, Oculus is coming out in March-ish.
I think they put it back to June, didn't they? Did I read that?
I think it was the March pre-orders all sold out immediately, so it's like you can't buy them in March.
Maybe that makes sense. Yeah. But they're saying that Vive have been showing their new pre-headset.
Yeah, they have. So
a slimmer
when's
version.
that going to come out is the question.
And a lot of people are saying that's pretty amazing as well.
It's like, how much time is Oculus going to have by themselves?
Not long.
No.
Vive is going to come out this year, and I reckon it's not far away.
And what about the PlayStation one?
That's got to be this year too.
End
Yeah,
of this
pretty
year, I
much.
reckon.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be holiday.
But yeah, I fail to see how that's going to take off.
Well, the thing that everyone
Because it's going
was
to cost
saying...
like 400, 500
yeah, maybe
as well.
this first round isn't the one, right?
Well, the thing everyone was saying about it was like, everyone was... Well, some people were speculating that because it's the Facebook thing, that surely they'd subsidise it a bit to get it into the market.
Yeah, but
like, make it a bit cheaper.
But Oculus have said they're already making a loss. Well, no, that's a lie. Palmer Luckey has said they are not making money on these initial sales.
Yeah. But that's like...
And he also was like out there profusely apologising in a way, like we said this was going to be about £300 like a few years back. We were wrong. It takes a lot more to make a good headset.
Well, it's like, at the moment, we can only have speculation, but the test will be once one or both of the other headsets comes out and how much they're costing, and then comparing the stats. I mean, obviously, probably the PlayStation ones are going to be cheaper because it's worse in general.
Yeah. But that might be the one to kick. If any of them are going to do it, my money is on PlayStation VR being the thing that kickstarts this.
Yeah, theoretically.
Because it's cheaper and because it's in the hands of...
Because you have a PlayStation already,
Yeah,
in theory.
that's what I mean. You're putting
You're not
it
having
on...
to build a computer.
You're putting it on the single most popular gaming platform, other than mobile, obviously. But it's... Yeah, that will be the trick. And... in fairness to Sony, like normally my biggest problem with Sony is that they do something, they do it big for the first month or whatever, and then never touch it again.
It's the classic peripheral problem on all consoles ever. You have a peripheral and then it goes away because no one cares.
Sony are trying their best this time to put exactly that fear aside, with sayings that apparently they've got over 100 PlayStation VR games in the pipeline. Now, whether that
they can
means...
say that as much as they want, really.
Yeah, but whether that
depends how
means...
much of a game any of those games are.
My betting is it's probably like, well, they're just going to be making the games they would normally make, but maybe they've got a VR mode in them.
Yeah, like how they did with
Exactly.
3D.
Like the supposed Tekken VR.
Well, it's
whatever
like
that
they
is.
announced that stupid robot golf game.
Oh, yeah, as a
Giant
VR
robot.
game.
And that no, that's not a VR game. It has a
is it
VR
not?
mode. That's
Oh,
exactly
right.
the point.
Sure.
What you're making.
Yeah.
It has one mode that's VR capable, and that's
Yeah,
it.
like Res Infinity. You don't actually have to have VR to play that version of Res, for instance. It'll work just fine.
But the problem I have with the PlayStation VR is, like, judging by the demo I played, the graphics are pretty horrifically bad. Like, not great by any standards. So if you're building a game for the PS4, you're going to have to literally make a completely different build almost for VR because
Maybe,
of the graphic
yeah.
changes.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, you're having to... it's like doing VR is basically doing split screen, right? Which has obviously fallen away from being popular in consoles in general, right? Because it's the game never looks as good running in split.
Yeah.
In most cases, or has frame rate issues running in split. And with VR, you're doing that split for one person, so it's doing a whole lot more processing, presumably to keep up with the head tracking, maybe, or. It depends how much of that is on the device itself, or how PlayStation VR are even pulling that off. They haven't been totally upfront with how they're doing that.
Well, they've
right?
said that they have a processing unit that's
It's
basically
like a
like an
little
external box that's on the
okay.
cable, essentially.
Right.
It doesn't... I can't remember what it does, but it's only like a little box. It's not...
So
It doesn't do a lot.
There isn't a.
It's basically like the
it's a
Kinect
Kinect
at that point.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just an extra box with some more power in it.
Yeah.
However much power the Kinect actually had.
Oh, the
Didn't
Kinect-
seem like much, to be honest.
Well, the Kinect does quite a lot of work. It's the Kinect device itself is the thing that's figuring out all the skeletal tracking and stuff like that, and games can then choose how they use that data.
Badly.
As it turns out, yes. I still need to get mine fixed.
So yeah, basically Oculus is getting it on the market first, and then they'll have some number of months before maybe everyone shits on them for being priced too much, or they'll be justified. We'll see.
I mean, I reckon the release version of the Rift will be quite markedly better than the other two. I reckon Vive will come in at a good price, and it does things that Oculus doesn't. You know, its room tracking thing is unique, but I don't think that's really going to take that feature. Isn't going to take off for the majority of people. It's going to be great as a marketing tool. like here's the car you're about to buy. Let's walk around it. But as specialist installation games, that technology is fantastic. As a home device, they've gone a bit too far. Like in a way, like I don't see myself with a Vive as much as I see myself with a Rift for practicality reasons.
Well, that room thing, I think. I mean, in your situation especially, I think it should theoretically work because you have you have your computer in the living room where there's automatically a large empty space in the middle of the room, more or less, if you move your coffee table that way.
Yeah, I'd have to shift stuff around, but this room would be big enough. But you'd have to mount sensors in places or emitters.
Yes, but that's only a worry for you because you're obsessed with cables in this room.
Yeah, who wouldn't be? It's a pain.
I don't give a shit. I have cables running through the middle of my room if I have to. And I do.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying that's a problem for everyone, but, I still have tons of cables everywhere. As much as I'd like them not to be there, I still have them. But, I don't know. I think that is a barrier. People be like, oh, no, I don't really want a weird thing in the corner of my room, right? There aren't... I don't want it mounted in the corner of the ceiling or whatever it is.
To be fair, it's not a fucking security camera. Isn't
that where they sort of said initially they had said some of those sensors would ideally sit?
Yeah, sure, but what? So what? How often do you ever look at the corner of your room?
You just got to put it there.
Wow.
People are lazy.
I think there's bigger boundaries than that, though.
Yeah, probably.
For sure. Right.
I think that's probably the least of our worries when it comes to VR. I don't think that's the biggest concern, really. It's about
porn.
That's not a concern, that's a bonus.
So I just can't see it. I always said this from the start, I just can't see it kicking off for a long time yet. Because it's A, too expensive, B, still not that great based on my experiences.
I gotta admit, I haven't actually had what I would call a proper experience yet. I've used the Oculus, like DK1s, I think, a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean,
you can see the promise.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like, it was like playing Elite was really cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I wouldn't pay for that experience.
Oh, not that much anyway.
Because it's just not at that standard I would want.
The trick is in the games, right? Like, it will be when people come up with games that work in those formats.
Well, the thing about
Sony are really trying.
The thing about it is just that it's like the VR headsets have come out one generation of hardware too early, basically. If they waited another year for everyone to naturally have better computers, because it's like the VR, they are constrained by like the human body. They have to render at a certain resolution and a certain speed to actually make it not nauseating as much. So that's why they have to have such high specs, because they need that power, but everyone else doesn't quite have that power themselves naturally. So if they'd come out like 1 year further in the future where everyone will naturally have computers that are better, it wouldn't be such a problem.
Yeah, well, it's like next year is a big year for computers, isn't it? Because you've got...
Well, theoretically,
the new NVIDIA chips.
Yeah, the new NVIDIA chips, the new Intel chips that are supposedly coming out, which are the smaller die.
Oh, shit, really?
And all this kind of stuff.
Is that going to delay my PC purchase even more?
God damn it, no.
Well, they're changing all the standards for PCs again, basically, aren't they? Like, all the new GPUs have got a new... system, haven't they?
Well,
and all the new
like that,
Intel chips and need different sockets, aren't they?
I'm going to have to respec my build.
Which is why I can't really upgrade mine, because there's no point, because if I want a new chip, it's going to be a different socket anyway.
In fairness, that happens with like motherboards all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
But it's just like next year is the big year if you want to do it, I think, because that's when a lot of things are changing.
But when this year? When is it? Like, because I know the NVIDIA chipset's middle of this year. Like, hopefully the new cards should be middle of this year.
Sorry, I meant this year's when the changes are happening. Yeah.
But like, when's the Intel stuff coming? Because the problem is I've made this mistake before, right? I went in on i7 when it was brand new.
Yeah.
And my chipset is not good.
No.
It's like, it's fast, but it uses a lot of power, and more worryingly, runs very, very hot, and it always has.
Well, wasn't the latest Intel one not very good?
I think so, yeah.
Compared to the last few.
That's just the traditional chip thing. It's like They get better on average, but there's always shit ones.
Yeah, it's because this is the one just before the die shrink, so it's like
they hit a limit or something.
I don't know if they hit a limit.
They didn't hit a limit because they're making it smaller.
I know, but they hit a limit with their current process.
Yes.
Is this the one where are you thinking more about the motherboard? Because they define like certain styles of motherboard chip architecture, don't they? Not necessarily the CPU chip itself, but like certain forms of the way the motherboard supports the processor.
I'm just talking about the Intel CPUs.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember what it was called. Sunny something, maybe.
Yeah, something.
But
Something
yeah,
like that.
everyone was like,
normally some of that is tied to the motherboard as well.
everyone was like, oh yeah, if you upgrade, you should wait for the new Intel chip. And then they came out like, yeah, don't bother, just get the current ones.
So stick with it's Haswell, isn't it? Was the one before?
Yeah, I think so.
So stick with Haswell's.
Yeah,
because Haswell's were pretty new, like not that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, they release one like every year.
I don't think you can possibly suffer with your terrible PC for a whole other year.
It's not terrible.
Yours is pretty good. You upgraded the CPU and stuff recently, didn't you? Or was it just the GPU?
I upgraded to a 670 about 2 years ago.
And that's ancient at this point.
I thought you changed the CPU. Am I making that?
No, I have always had the i7 920 in there, which is, as I say, like it was a high spec i7 when it. But that was when i7 launched.
As we've discussed several times with Rob's computer, it's like...
Oh, it has more problems
The major
than that.
specs aren't actually the problem.
No.
It's all the little things that add up to being a big mess.
The case is unbelievably terrible. Like, those front USB ports on it aren't tight enough, which is a stupid problem to have. So USB things just fall out.
Mine don't even work. They're just there.
What, they weren't connected properly?
No, I don't even know if there is a connection for them. They're just sort of sitting there.
Because the i7 overheated so much, I've had to fit a aftermarket cooler, but the case doesn't have enough space. So because the position of the intake fan was right over the CPU, meaning that the fan and the thing just bump against each other. So I can't actually put my case together.
Yep.
So I have to have, like, I don't know if you can see it, but I have to have the panel always half off so there's enough airflow. The airflow is terrible. Don't skimp on the case. That's what I keep saying to myself.
Yeah,
like,
got a good case
I've done this twice in a row now. I've bought cheap cases, and both of them have failed me horribly.
Yeah, I got a really good case of my one.
I bought this one because it had a brushed aluminium front, and that was it.
And blue LEDs.
It had a few blue LEDs, yeah.
Well, one of my fans is fucked up on my one because it makes a really horrible noise for like the first 5 minutes of it being on, and then it just stops making noise for some reason.
Well, my case
just stop.
No, it's still running. It just for some reason there's something like the fan cable or something is.
Oh, yeah, I've had that as well.
Something like
my
that.
My case just has a constant rattle. It's not really. I've worked out where it is on the case now. It's like this it's like the weird meeting of the front panel and the top panel on the upper left corner.
Right.
Where it's just like, once it starts doing it, you just like squeeze it and that stops it for a while. It's like it's unsettling the plastic somehow and it's making it rattle.
So, sometimes I do that with that case because the front panel of my case is like a weird swinging door.
Yeah.
And so if I like have that shut, even though it's got little rubbery bits at the end, like the actual door itself sort of like isn't constructed that well,
like
and so has a bit of a rattle to it. And the only way to stop it if it does that is to just open the door, expose all the drives and whatever. And it's like,
well, see, mine contemplating an upgrade for my computer now, and it's not even that old, just because it can't handle
a lot of computers.
Well, no, I've bought two in the last 6 years. One of them was last year because we needed two computers to play CS together, and it was really cheap.
That's a good reason.
Yeah, that's true. Like just for CS, you didn't really need power.
No,
I suppose.
that's it. But yeah, my one, I've got a decent CPU in mine, but it's still crap for videos and
CPU isn't
recording and
I suppose
streaming.
Apart from video stuff, CPU isn't normally the bottleneck. Even now on games,
well, for streaming and stuff, it is.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Apart from streaming and video and stuff, CPU still isn't really.
No, for gaming it's fine, but because I do a lot of video recording and stuff like that, it's just not up to the
same with me. Like if I'm encoding our Final Fantasy videos properly, I can't be bothered to I can't
you can't suffer how much it fucks with your computer in general.
Oh boy, it has to run at full strength for 4 hours, and it's like
that's nothing. It takes me forever, but that's because the new Adobe is shit for encoding for some reason. The new one is broken.
Are you using Creative Cloud or
CC?
No, I'm not using that. I'm not that advanced.
So I need to roll back to the old version because the new one's total crap for encoding for some reason. But yeah, even because I render all my stuff at 1080p 60 frames a second, so it takes fucking forever.
We haven't moved to 60 yet because it's Well, the storage requirements are ridiculous.
Yes.
But that's not a fucking problem on your computer. I'm so annoyed with your constant obsession with your hard disk, which is never more than half full ever. And you have a huge external hard disk storage space as well.
That's how you keep it good.
No, it isn't.
Like,
it's irrelevant.
In theory,
unless you happen to defrag and partition your hard disk, so the first section of the hard disk is always the bit that's recorded to or whatever. Which is technically what I tried to do with my computer.
There's some logic to that, yeah. Like, well, in theory, the theory goes that as soon as you hit 50, you're hitting the outer 50% of your disk platter. You're losing performance in your drive.
Yes, but is your shit defragged enough for that to actually be the case ever?
I haven't defragged for a long time, but generally no. But it's the fact that
put a paw in your speaker.
Cheers, cat.
In that little crevice just went.
I wonder if anything's in the base hole. Well, no. It's nothing to do with like defragging or whatever. It's just because the outer edge of the platter is like, or is it the inner edge?
Defragging, isn't it?
It's one of the two. There's some physical thing about how hard drives work. That's like when it's starting to use a certain portion of the disk, it just can't read as well.
Yes,
it's probably the inside.
But it's still to do with defragging, isn't it? Because if the file that it's trying to record starts going into that bad zone, then it's going to be slower. So if it's not got a huge block of empty space that's in the right zone, you're going to be...
Well, this is why you should be recording to SSD.
Yes, that's true.
Yes, that too. But then, SSD lifespans for videos are questionable. But, they're still pretty long now.
All you want it for is to literally record it for that very video, and then...
Throw the SSD away.
Not throw it away, but if you're only recording it on that moment, then it doesn't really matter if it dies after that, because you're only using it for that particular video, and then you just move it.
But yeah, if you have an SSD purely for recording, that's ideal.
See, that's what... Because I don't have any SSDs on my computer. When I do my next computer, which will probably be next year, hopefully...
I'm totally putting Windows on an SSD.
Yeah.
I've had enough of waiting for Windows.
I want a boot drive on SSD, and then like a hard drive for crap that...
Storage.
The major game storage, I suppose, yeah.
And then another SSD for when I'm recording videos, so it actually records it...
Yeah, that's smart.
To a separate
drive.
To a separate drive in proper, speed, rather... Because that's probably part of my limitation as well, is writing 1080p 60 frames per second.
Oh, that's a hell of a drain.
It probably causes me problems as well, so...
Especially if you're writing to the same drive that you're playing the game from, that's going to cause you all kinds of problems.
I mean, that was technically why I partitioned my hard disk. I mean, I only have two, and they're just regular hard disks. But it was like, okay, boot partition on the first one, and then we've got the data on the second half of the first disk, and then the games are on the second half of the second disk.
You've got a capture device, right? You've got an Elgato?
Oh, that's only for the console, though.
Oh, can you not route the HDMI from your monitor back into the Elgato, and route that back into your PC so your Elgato is technically doing the encoding?
Well, you could, but that's kind of stupid.
It is. I mean, it still needs your hard disk,
that wouldn't...
you're saving CPU cycles, surely.
No, because the computer's still having to run the game.
Yeah, but the Gato's doing the encoding work, right? Or is it literally
just
only
a capture? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why
I assumed they actually did the MPEG-4 conversion in the device.
That's
like
the other
some
thing.
Specific hardware for that job.
That's what the other thing I'm thinking about doing is buying a capture card for my other PC.
Oh, yeah, you're in the position where you've got two machines right next to each other. So
and then I could capture it on that PC.
Yeah.
Use the second one as a.
But I don't know if it's good enough for all that. Is the problem because it's not an overly amazing computer.
Yeah, you know what?
But if it's doing it just for that and not running the game at the same time, then it's possible it probably could.
I mean, yeah. If you don't have to really compress it that much. If you could feed the uncompressed, record it Fraps style, right? Just uncompressed video to the second machine.
Well, if I can
and all
record...
you really need is hard disk speed. You don't need CPU cycles then.
Well, if I can record 1080p 60 while the game's running on my main PC, I'm sure I could run it through the other PC and it could record just the video at 1080p 60.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But I don't know, it's all very
It's a difficult
It's all very complicated, all this shit.
Yeah, unless you have dedicated hardware for the job and a proper setup in your house. You've got the best setup of the lot of us for that kind of thing in terms of having nice hardware space next to each other and things like that.
There's a big pile of equipment.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You need a lot of equipment. It's really expensive.
Yeah.
It's just...
Well, that's the thing. It's like, even if I built my new machine, right, and I have a problem with what to do with old machines. I've still got my old computer from 2003 hanging
That's what I'm
about,
saying. You could keep that for the video encoding, like I was saying.
I mean, maybe.
Well, that was the original plan with that one, wasn't it? You were going to keep that to be a server at some point.
Yeah, and I thought about repurposing Beef into a server, but it just uses too much power, really, to have around and is too noisy to be a home server, really. Buying a NAS drive outright ended up being a much better option, and about the same price, as it turns out, than trying to repurpose it.
I mean, I don't know what I would have done with my old computer if it hadn't been the motherboard that died.
Yeah.
It's like I just used that until it actually completely packed up. So I guess that was the good solution there.
I'm in two minds whether to keep this thing running or to do what I normally do, which is just put it somewhere.
I've got 2 or 3 that I need to
I don't know what to do with them exactly. But
I mean, I stripped my old computer for parts. Like, they're all in a drawer. If you want some H&S RAM, I've got it.
That's the thing. There's something about having like there's an age point, right, where that makes sense. Like something prior to XP, having machines of that age.
The really ancient RAM, where it's like, this is not even DDR. Where
you might need it to correctly run things in DOS that DOSBox can't yet manage, or old Windows 95 stuff that isn't easily emulated properly. I'm talking about you don't know Jack UK edition.
Boo.
You can't quite get that to work properly. You need an old 95 machine or a 98 machine that is of that age with that sort of equipment.
Yeah.
And it's...
But, that doesn't actually work because 90% of the time you're just stripping the non-central components. So you don't actually have a motherboard and a processor of the 95, 98 age.
Yeah.
You just have RAM.
or
a graphics card.
Or an old...
Or a floppy drive.
Or not IDE, but whatever came before IDE hard drive or whatever.
Yes.
I think we've got one of those somewhere.
Or a graphics card with a game port on it.
Oh man, yeah. That nonsense. That was on the sound card, wasn't it? The game port?
That's right. Sound cards.
Yeah. God, bonkers time. Yeah, all that stuff. So I don't know whether I keep this one, as I say, and use it as a recording solution, or cause it would just take up space is the other problem.
Well, I think maybe what
or just because as I've mentioned before, my music environment is kind of important, and I don't fancy going through that hassle again.
Well, it's like I've done it on mine, and I still haven't bothered getting it properly up to where it was, so it's just like I've given up.
So the alternative is just move the drive, right, and dual boot the system. And
but that was the problem. My drive died, so I couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's problematic. I mean, I'm backing up most of what I have now, thanks to NAS land, but it's still not the same, right? It's the installation process that's the bugger. Everything installs individually, and then it takes so long.
Yeah, I've kind of given up with all that music stuff because it's just such a pain.
It is a pain. Be nice to be paid for it, it's that kind of like it's enough of a pain that you kind of want to be paid for it. Like, computers. So this year, I'm gonna have to look up this Intel stuff now. Let's hope it's good.
Is there any more news? I don't think there is.
Yes, but I've sort of forgotten about it.
Oh, come on, really? There's like 3 news stories this week, so we've done 2 of them if there's a third one.
Talked about so much other nonsense that I've just forgotten about it.
Psychonauts 2 Kickstarter?
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
I don't think of anything else.
You don't think of anything else?
I don't think of anything ever.
That Psychonauts 2 Kickstarter is the only thing in your mind 24/7.
I literally couldn't give a shit.
What, about everything, or just...
I don't think they take a shit, actually.
Specifically about
Psychonauts. It's not a Kickstarter to hear that. Really I'll give you a shit. I mean, it's a donation, so theoretically you can give them whatever fuck you want, right?
Didn't Scalebound get...
Yeah, Scalebound got delayed.
Oh, did it? Shit. When's that?
2017, so,
Oh, cock. I was kind of looking forward to that. I think that looked kind of interesting in a Xenoblade-y kind of, but, not quite...
More manageable.
Yeah, kind of way.
And co-op, yeah.
Yeah. Whatever the heck that multi-dragon thing is. This is not the right page in my notes.
Oh, come on. We even stalled for time by talking about Kickstarter shit and Scalebound. Look up the thing faster.
I haven't quite figured out how to use... OneNote on Windows 10 mobile is different from what it used to be.
God damn it.
Oh, yeah. That was the other thing. Final Fantasy IX is getting a PC version.
Well, that's good for us, I guess, in about 2 years when we make a record.
About 2 years' time. It's said to be coming out on PS4, at least, within this year. and there will be a PC version.
The thing about 9 is that's one that they virtually don't have to do anything to. It was a solid PlayStation 1 game, provided they can mash it, through the same process that 8 did.
Well, as long as the thing is right, because they didn't make a PC version of 9 before.
No,
that's never happened. They made PC versions of 7 and 8, and as we've sort of proved by playing Final Fantasy 8 and with the original, there are things about it that aren't right. Right, the music is obviously terrible.
Yep.
Especially the 8 version. That is not good.
I mean, in 7 it was excusable because it was like MIDI.
Yeah. And
whereas in 8 it's like they've remade it, but badly.
Yeah. Yeah, 8 is a weird one, because I just did a bit of research on this. It's still sort of using MIDI. So when we played the game, it sounded bad, but it sounds bad in a different way to other people I've watched playing the PC version of that game.
Well, sure, that's just how MIDI is, isn't it?
Yeah,
everyone has their weird own MIDI somehow.
But then there are certain points in that game where it's not just using MIDI, apparently. There are bits where they use guitar samples and things like that are playing alongside the MIDI, maybe?
Right.
It's really weird. But anyway.
There was something here about the new Intel Broadwell.
Oh, Broadwell. Okay, that's the name.
That's not confusing at all.
That's the name. Not Haswell, but Broadwell.
There's an interesting rumour here with i7-6950X Broadwell to be the first Intel consumer CPU with 10 cores.
A deca core.
10 real cores? Or 10 fake cores?
And I imagine it must be physical, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Unless it's a 5-core processor that hyperthreads.
Yeah, exactly.
But then again, octa-cores are a thing. Legitimate octa-cores are a thing in mobiles.
Yeah.
But is that still actually useful? That's the thing that I've,
Also, I don't like the fact they call them octa-cores.
No.
There's something about that doesn't sound right. It should be, just 8 cores.
It's ever since the hyperthreading age, when hyperthreading first became a thing, it was just do people properly use multiple CPUs still?
They're getting there, right? Game engines are now much more designed for that way of thinking.
It was since the engines actually became the thing that's multi... the game developers didn't have to do it themselves.
There are definitely certain tasks that have become a lot better at that.
But,
the video has come on leaps and bounds.
It's the same thing as, 64-bit as well, isn't it? How you still have run into problems where it's the 64-bit version, come on!
There's a lot of software that still runs 32.
Yeah.
A lot of software. Surprising amounts.
It's both Dwarf Fortress and Kerbal Space Program have had problems with multi-threading and 64-bit. Apparently, Dwarf Fortress 64-bit is nearly a thing. He's got it partially working. And Kerbal's similarly.
Something that actually reminds me, CSGO has a problem with multi-threading. Because I had to turn that off, and it instantly made my video recording that much better.
You mean hyper-threading? Or...
No, multi-threading.
Just multi-threading in general?
Yeah, there's an option in the graphics option that says multi-threading on, yes or no.
Well,
I turned that off, and it made it way better.
Is that just because then your recording thread is basically on a separate core?
I would imagine so, yes. But still, if it's
CPU.
multi-threading properly, it wouldn't have been an issue, surely.
Oh, I know, it just depends. It can spread the load out, right? It's your cores will become...
yeah, but OBS multi-threads, so surely if they're both multi-threading properly, it wouldn't be an issue. It wouldn't be different.
That depends entirely on how much is being used by each app and when each app needs it.
That's the thing. But if I can do it, but that's what I'm saying. If they're not using more depending on how you're multi-threading.
No, not on how you're multi-threading, but then it becomes one of those awkward It's almost like when you're queuing at Asda, right?
Making an analogy.
Yeah, because suddenly you're then having to wait for the free space in order to get work done. If CS is using all 8 tills at once,
this is a terrible mix-up.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, there are moments of time where OBS won't be able to do its job, maybe because CS just happens to have something running on all 8 cores. And they're saying that OBS might want to do a specific job on all 8 cores at that moment in time.
Surely the dream solution is to be able to to limit stuff to a selection of cores that you can actually set.
Well, you can do that.
Well, you can in theory, but it doesn't actually work, does it?
No, the OSs have never really enforced that strongly enough. You always had affinity options, which is if you can, please do the work over here.
There is software you can get that does it.
Well, sure, but then you're adding basically another layer of processing to be done.
I mean, in
Yeah,
theory,
but then
you
you're
could.
able to select the cores you want to use.
In theory, I think there's certain virtual machine software that lets you define entire VMs to only use certain cores, for instance.
I mean, that sort of makes sense because you're basically replicating one core into one core or whatever.
Yeah. So you could isolate 2 VMs on your system and make them use 2 cores each, for instance, and have 2 completely isolated systems that don't steal each other's power. That's the ideal, right?
Yes. It seems like this whole threading problem has not really been solved, even though it's been around for so long.
It's not because all we've done is made it more complex.
Yeah.
Right. That's all.
You just keep adding more cores.
That's all multi-threading has done, is made how you program more complex and how you solve these issues becomes more complex. And generally, in my line of work, like not performance heavy style thing, if you were to think about this kind of stuff, you sort of don't. You don't care what's going on other cores. All you care is making sure your threads work and that they come together in a sensible manner.
Yeah.
You don't care where the work is done. Games are a very different thing, obviously, in that where you organize your power is incredibly important. But the majority of maybe OBS, I would argue, is probably one of those bits of kit, or most video encoders, for instance. Well, actually, that's probably not true. Video encoders probably need to be very careful about how they use their threads if they're doing it live. But, a lot of apps out there just won't care. They'll run it where they can and suffer the consequences.
Okay. That's all news.
Multi-cores. But yeah, FF9 might be good.
Well,
because,
I mean, they can't really find...
surely
at this
they do
point...
an FF6 on it, right?
Well, that's a different thing, though, because FF6, you're basically having to rebuild it from the ground up.
But it's awful.
Yes, but that's not any representation of how it would be for a PlayStation game.
If they'd have just released the PlayStation version of
I mean,
FF6,
surely,
everyone would have been happy.
Surely you can't imagine that for FF9 they're going to make new recordings of music. They're just going to rip it straight off the
hopefully they'll
PlayStation.
just use the PS1 version of the music. They have said they're upping the video fidelity, like in the same way that they did for FF8. Like, because
Okay, so yeah.
the videos are of higher quality than they used to be. But it's the same videos underneath, really. If you know what I mean. They've used the same source, I guess, but probably re-rendered it to a higher res.
So that'll probably be fine.
So that bit will be fine, yeah. They have changed elements of the UI, it seems, from the screenshots they've shown.
Well, what bit specifically?
As in, a lot of FF9's interface used to kind of be... I don't know. Well, they've kind of upped some font resolutions and where things are, where things are positioned and stuff are subtly different. And
FF9's stuff was basically more like FF7's than FF8.
Because FF8 had more boxes.
FF8 was all about panels.
Yeah, panels
and lists and all kinds of things sliding in from different places.
Yes.
Whereas 9, they went back to much more like 7, where it's just like, here's a box.
Yeah.
And here's a list.
Here's a box with stuff in it. Yes, I don't know, that'd be cool. Don't screw it up, Square.
We'll get to that in a couple of years, probably.
Square can't be blind to what people have said about their terrible iOS ports, or and the resulting PC versions that came from those iOS versions.
Well, you hope not. Anyway.
So let's hope they get this right. And that's it for news.
Good.
There's not been any Rocket League news. It's just
Yeah, they haven't even managed to get another patch out yet.
Yeah.
The patch with the quality
ranked
of life
ranked
stuff.
rejoin and
Yeah. Games.
Games.
We played some Rocket League at some point, I guess.
Let's start with Kips. What have you been playing?
Well,
Should we talk Rocket League, or is there anything to say about Rocket League other than it's awesome?
No. One bit of random news I did read this week, actually, was SteelSeries are bringing out a new mouse that has a screen on it.
Oh, no, I did read that. What is the point?
I know. You
never
can't
look
see
at your
it
hand.
when you're playing.
You never look at your hand.
Well, it was barely point for when they had those keyboards that had screens on the keys.
Yeah, I guess.
Completely rebindable keyboard screens.
Was it it's awesome. But
Yeah.
The Optimus was kind of pointless.
Yeah.
It made a lot more sense actually for non-gaming scenarios.
Yeah.
That thing where it would be nice to have it change shortcuts for the program you're using or whatever. That thing was cool.
But honestly, you don't even look at your keyboard because you're touch typing most of the time.
No, once you learn it, it's fine, right? That's the whole point. But while you're learning, that's why they still do those Final Cut Pro editions of Mac keyboards, right, where they have the coloured keys
Yeah.
to try and help you remember where everything is.
Keyboard overlays, that's what you want. You just want a bit of plastic that you whack over there that makes it feel weird.
Yeah. But keyboards are all such different sizes now, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's made for the specific brand of keyboard, obviously.
Never gonna happen.
It already did happen in like the 90s.
Keyboards were more standard then.
Not that much more standard.
A little bit. The classic cherry.
Games? What else give us?
Yeah, what else you doing?
Apart from
haven't
Counter-Strike
played
and
much
Rocket
this
League, we know about
Counter-Strike, yeah. Lots of Counter-Strike, as always. Amplitude.
Yep, I
Shit.
saw videos of that.
So you had to show me that before we came on air. It's like, that's Amplitude, alright?
Yeah.
Well, very literally, yes.
It has its same annoyances that the original does for me.
Yeah, it has a few little, the old control quirks of changing
Yeah.
lanes and stuff are still there. And, because it's Amplitude by default, you still have the problem with the left and right edges
Yeah.
of the world. But you can turn it into frequency mode.
Yep.
Someone thought about that. That's cool.
Well, it saved them making 2 games.
I guess.
That's in reality what happened. We were going to make... They might as well have said that. They might well have not called it Amplitude. They could have called it Amplitude/Frequency or something.
Amplitude.
Amfreak.
Frequitude.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
That sounds like such a 90s attitude. So
This whole thing is 90s.
yeah.
It's the whole
It
point.
wasn't though. It was like mid-2000s, wasn't
okay.
it? Yeah.
Well,
2003.
mid to early, yeah. Wouldn't call it mid, exactly.
I think that was when I bought my copy.
That's probably also,
Yeah.
that's probably more true.
That game seems tight.
It's pretty good. It's got a decent soundtrack. I mean, it's a short soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, those soundtracks were never massive anyway, like on any of the previous ones.
No, I don't think it's a very expensive game either.
I don't know what its real price is because you got it because you're a backer.
Yeah, so I
That
can't
means you get the
remember how much-
bonus track.
Oh, there's a bonus track?
From Kickstarter backers.
Oh, was there?
Only Kickstarter backers get it.
Which one was that?
By computer controller, so you know.
Ah,
Oh,
It's
right.
probably fucked.
yeah.
we played. They brought back one of the tracks from Frequency, Synthesize. From,
Yeah, the classic.
by Symbian Project. It's just as friggin' hard as it always used
Oh
to
no, it's just insane, is it?
be. So difficult. I mean, but that's the joy in a way of that game was like you and I sat next to each other, putting it on the hardest difficulty setting, and like just mashing our way through them until we do it. It's awesome. I kind of hope there's like a super expert mode. There is. Oh, is there?
There is.
Oh, holy crap!
It's S, I forget. Yeah, it's basically super. But I've obviously I'm never going to get that because I can't. I'm stuck on the campaign on expert. So
Oh, it's amazing. And, like, they've done a good visual job. Like they've taken the Amplitude look, but kind of just funked it up in every way. Like it's the same. It is the same game at its core, but I
I don't like
absolutely
the menu
no problem
design
with that.
though.
Oh, they didn't. Need,
It's very
It doesn't
no,
need
it
a
doesn't
good
need it,
menu.
but it just looks kind of cheap.
Well, it's weird because it's like, do you remember Frequency's menu was the cheap end of the scale, right?
Well,
You know, it
Frequency
had-
menu was like made in paint.
yeah.
yeah, it didn't quite. Then Amplitude, they went too far the other direction. Do you remember that menu?
Well, it was all
all the
like
pipes.
it was just like random virtual spaces.
Yeah, and then each menu had a different space, and they did that thing where the music transitions to a different loop as you go to a different space.
I mean, that's not a terrible thing to do.
No, I mean,
really,
it was.
guess.
I mean, at the time, that was kind of wow. That's cool. Like, who had done that before at that point? I'm not sure.
Probably a bunch of you.
Yeah,
To try
maybe,
their way
but-
over it.
Yeah, but it was still kind of cool at the time. Yes, they went down that stupid Avatar route that was
Well,
properly
the
done.
freaks were pointless anyway.
Yeah.
And then when they turned into actual people, it was like, well, this is still pointless, and it's now even worse.
Well, they made a little more sense in the first one, or in a weird way, like the initial sort of weird vector avatars would have made more sense in today's era, right, with the internet and like rankings and that kind
Sure.
of thing. Whereas at the time they were just like they didn't make any sense, and then they turned them into 3D badly animated models
Yep.
playing mysterious hover bongos.
Yeah.
It's like that was just a terrible idea. They just had something to unlock, I suppose.
I guess.
That was all they were there for. Oh, obviously, the key trick to the original Amplitude was finding the option that lets you turn that off. So you can see more of the screen.
So yeah,
It's a good game.
it's a good game. I have some minor complaints, like sometimes it's hard to actually see what the fuck is going on with it.
I mean, that's any rhythm game ever.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like like the lanes and stuff, like the zappy stuff, is all so wobbly wibbly. It's hard to see the actual notes sometimes.
Well, that was actually like a weird.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But
the
doesn't
ones
mean
with
it
it all
shouldn't
in
have
a
been changed to be more visible.
I think the problem we had earlier was the ones that are all in one line.
Yeah, it was like there was
when it's not zigzagging across the track and you've
there's
got
like that yellow colour
button.
or something, and you couldn't hardly see the notes, could you?
Yeah.
Do you know? And it was
The
just
yellow lane, yeah, that was a problem.
yeah, like that. Just because the original did it like that doesn't mean when you make a new version now you have to make the same mistakes. Do you know what I mean? It's just like they could have improved it.
I mean, you get a little used to it, but yeah, the only thing we had was like, they're all in a straight line, like it's all on the same button, and because the waveform they have that waveform effect connecting them all together. Actually, where the dots are in there then becomes a little tricky.
Yeah, they need to make them like different colour or something.
Maybe.
Like make the dot just white.
Yeah, perhaps.
And
but
then
maybe that's
the
all it
actual
needed.
track colourful, you know what I mean? So you can actually see what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe that's all it needed.
It just made it like sometimes it's just a bit too difficult to see what you're trying to do.
I mean, they were different colours in the original. In frequency, they were like
Were they?
They were like blue diamonds
Always
the
blue,
green line.
and a green line. Yeah, so there was always a contrast between the effect
but
and
the line is the zappy line's always white, I think, on this, but the thing is the same colour as the wobbly edges, isn't it? Or something.
Well, yeah, so I thought they were like light blue and light blue was the problem, like the blue orbs that they are, and they're more now more spherical now, aren't they? And it's like with a light blue wavy line, so I thought they kind of blended into each other.
Yeah, it does sort of. Yeah, it's got, as I say, it's got the same problem as the originals had.
Yeah,
it's kind of disappointing in a way. Like you would have thought they could have.
They made what they said they were going to make,
Yeah.
so I have no problem with that.
But yeah, it just feels kind of a bit dated in some respects because of it. Especially the lane system, like they could have come up with, like I know that's what amplitude is, but it's just like you physically can't change sometimes to a lane quick enough to then put the right input in.
Because the note is so near the end of the bar, you're playing, like shifting to a lane to keep your streak going is
especially
damn near
on
impossible.
expert, because
especially if you're trying to see where the next note is that you're supposed to be playing on the lane next to you. Yeah, that is really, really hard. But that, in a way, I think is in some aspects that is part of the skill. But in other aspects, it would be great if there was an auto lane switcher. So, like, if you knew you were going to succeed in this particular bar, or you felt good about it, that the UI perhaps would show, I'm going to switch to this if you get it right. So, perhaps that would ease some of that. You could still obviously then override it, but that would be an option for how you want to play that game. Perhaps pros would then turn that off so they have more control of where they want to go. And maybe in expert mode that doesn't help you too much if you're trying to skip the ridiculous tracks.
Yeah. It's just like I lose the streak nearly every time I have to switch lane because I can't physically do that after pressing that last note, change, and then press the right note like quickly.
It requires too much of a mental leap because you're already focusing on a ridiculously fast stretch of button presses that adding a second press in the middle of it is kind of awkward.
You can't physically do it. Like it feels like half the time. And then the other problem is the last note is nearly always at the break line. So I've moved lanes several times because I thought I've completed the lane, but there's actually that one
note you've just missed. Yeah, because you've switched just before pressing that button.
I don't know. It's just things like that.
I don't think there's a great deal they can do about that. Like it's part of what is that game.
Well, it doesn't need that line there if it's the end of your section.
I guess.
Well, they should have made it just like, I don't know, maybe some kind of automatic thing where, like, on the last note, you just hold down and that counts for the starting note of whichever track you switch to or something. Like, it carries over that input and it's always regardless of what note position it is or something. I don't know.
It felt quite generous on the first note of a bar if I'd switched. It felt like it had extended the hit zone for it. Because I'm sure there were times where I was miles late. Let me carry on. And it's like,
I mean, that would make sense, because otherwise that really would be impossible. When you're hitting a note that's exactly on the same time at the start and end
that
of
never
two
happens.
bars.
It's not the same time as such, but it's
the gap
pretty
between them
close.
Really thin.
Well, yeah, like a 64th of a beat.
And there are definitely patterns in that are... There are definitely note patterns that are way closer together than they have been in frequency and amplitude, right?
Well, there
were just certain ones... like the speed of some tracks is insane anyway. But like there are certain patterns where it feels like they've allowed notes to squidge together way more than they did in like frequency and amplitude.
Yeah, you have to be really freaking quick or
It's
something.
it's unbelievable. But I kind of like that.
Yeah, it was cool.
I kind of want it to be insane. It's, I guess, in a weird way, what is both. I haven't quite made my mind up on this, but the soundtrack does very heavily on, as is natural for the game, I suppose, like more, electronica style stuff, like a bit more, a bit of electro dance. There's a bit of D&B in there. There's a bit of weird ambient stuff, but it's all heavily skewed that way, which is odd, given that. But if you took frequency and amplitude side by side, the original amplitude skewed more pop compared to frequency's electronica stance.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't get me wrong, I think all the music in there seems to fit perfectly, right? I don't have a problem with that. But maybe they should have stuck to that being, a little more varied in their soundtrack choice. Because it kind of worked before, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe they couldn't get licenses, or I don't know, or maybe there aren't so many metal artists that are willing to work.
Well, for me personally,
what are Fear Factory up to? Fear Factory like harmonics.
Yeah, they didn't have the money for licenses, did they? All that stuff that they added in there was like most of their stuff is either their own stuff or stuff they've had previous agreements with.
Yeah,
so.
we noticed one track on the list was actually submitted by a Kickstarter backer.
Yeah,
and they were like, "Oh, this is good. We'll put that in the game."
And there's one from Danny Baranowski.
Yeah,
that is awesome.
One
by the way,
from C418.
Yeah,
The Minecraft music.
dude. Yeah,
no chips though.
no chips off.
There's some other people I've forgotten the names of as well.
Darren Korb from the Bastion and Transistor soundtracks is in there. Yeah. I don't really know.
Skullgirls.
Oh, yeah, there's this track from Skullgirls in there. Yeah, that's weird. That's the most out of place of the lot, actually. In a way. There's some freeze pop. That freeze pop song is good.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good freeze pop song.
There always has to be one.
Absolutely. If there wasn't, I'd be quite upset.
Yeah. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it.
It's exactly what you expect it to be.
I just wish they'd sort out some of the little niggles that I was talking about, but they haven't. So whatever.
Hey.
Is there any sort of word on if they'll do a DLC plan for it? Or
I'm pretty sure that's it. They're not going to do.
This is just the game.
Yeah. Pretty certain they're just going to leave it as is. But
it's cool that it exists, though. I'm really glad they pulled it off. And just actually did it.
What else you play, Killers?
Brr.
Burr.
That game.
It's like the butter game. Burr.
Heroes of the Storm, believe it or not.
No. Oh.
The other HOTS.
Yep.
Yes.
The other HOTS.
Or the other HOTS is non-existent now.
I guess Heart of the Swarm isn't a thing anymore.
No. It's all Legacy of the Void now.
Were you incredibly confused?
No, because it's incredibly simple.
Good. I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah, it's really simple. It's kind of reminded me of Awesome Noughts in that respect. Like,
yeah,
it's basically the same structure as Awesome Noughts in that you fight, you level up, and then you buy your upgrade tree. It has an upgrade tree, basically, that you choose, and then that's it. But the weird thing about it is, which I kind of don't like, is the maps. Each individual map has a quirk.
They have objectives, don't they?
Yeah, they have an objective, and that kind of kills it for me because... Although, obviously, it's balanced because you're both fighting for the same things, but at the same time, like, it kind of ruins that fight of trying to beat the Nexus first, because some of them, like...
Because you're not concentrating on that actual main thing any longer.
Because basically, you can go just for the objective, and some of the maps, you can win the game just by doing that, and everything you've been doing to defeat the lanes is completely irrelevant.
So the objectives don't actually help you win the lanes necessarily, or fight your way to the end.
Sometimes they do, but there's ones like
so that was my understanding, is that was what the whole objective system was, that it was actually just a way of perhaps assisting you complete what is the regular MOBA objective.
Yeah, some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, the one that comes to mind is a pirate one, where you have to collect gold from defeating like them.
Like mini bosses, sort of thing.
Yeah, like you get those special mobs on MOBA games. Yeah, the jungles. By killing those, you can destroy treasure chests and get gold that you then pay into the pirate dude. And then once you've paid enough gold, it fires cannons.
Okay.
But
that can just damage
But it goes straight to the Nexus.
Oh boy, right.
Yeah. So basically, if you win all the objective things, then you just win by that hitting the Nexus enough to kill it.
Yeah,
and it makes all the lane stuff completely pointless.
Maybe that doesn't work.
I can't remember if it was the pirate map, but it's one of the maps that there's 2 or 3 that have that cannon mechanic, but there's only one that goes directly for the Nexus, and I think the other ones it goes for like the turrets.
It's one of those things where I don't know if that adds strategy or if or just adds annoyance.
Well, it's like it adds too much strategy for general public play almost. Because like if you're high tier and you're like, okay, you're going to be our special player who goes and does that or whatever.
In ranked,
it's
why you have work. But...
It's like why you have junglers or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, apart from when it's a class that needs to jungle to whatever.
To draw a very rough parallel, I've sort of the more I've been playing of Halo 5's Warzone, for instance,
that's what I was thinking of. I was about to say
the more I've sort of actually been falling off that core Warzone mode, right? I mean, it's kind of cool in theory, but it's just not. There's too much going on to try and coordinate a decent winning plan.
What is the winning strategy?
Exactly. I mean, surely there will be. I guess if you had a proper team of 12 people you were working with, right, and you could talk to each other and try and deal with it. But it's like, I don't know, when you're just out there playing it as pretty much everyone is, right?
I assume all the matches just go to kill count, right?
Mostly, yeah.
It doesn't go to any of the secondary stuff.
I mean, every now and then you get a steamroller, right? And someone manages to take out the core.
Right.
But that is incredibly rare compared to some bastards just managing to last hit all the bloody
heroes,
mini-bosses. Yeah. And I mean, and that is what normally happens now. You'll be in a nice grueling fight with a mini boss. You'll be doing well, and then a single bastard will turn up and get the last hit with an SMG, and you're like, motherfucker, we worked for that, and we got no benefit for it.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And that is my problem with Warzone mode, in that they're like, who wins and who loses doesn't feel like the team. You know, it doesn't. There's the odd occasion where it does. The new Noctis level, for instance, I think is actually pretty good at being feeling like if your team is controlling things well, then they are going to win. Whereas, the other maps you can sort of get by with not really caring that much sometimes, and it can swing either way. Yeah, I don't know. Warzone I think is problematic. So I do wonder if that same problem is applying here. That there's like by adding an extra layer, have they actually just made it slightly more confusing as to what you should be doing?
I mean, I don't see it as a problem as such when you get to ranked. But because you have to be level 30 to play ranked, I haven't even got to try any of that stuff.
Yes, the classic problem of like uncoordinated public servers.
Yeah.
People don't know what they're doing and everyone's just running around randomly.
I mean, if you're playing ranked, everyone's going to be trying to do it properly. Yeah, but because obviously you have to play casual mode to get to ranked,
and also it's like before ranked, it's like people
don't know what they're doing. People learning the character.
Yeah.
People don't know how to do the objectives. Like that was part of my problem as well. I'm part of the problem.
Yes,
because I didn't know what to do the objective.
Well, here's the thing, right? I had a moment, right, where last year, I installed Dota 2.
Yeah,
and I thought maybe I'll do this. But I never actually fired it up.
I tried Dota 2 and it was fun. I enjoyed it, but it was way too complicated.
Yeah, just too impenetrable. For
it's just I don't have the time to learn it.
Yeah.
Whereas Heroes of the Storm, you can learn. You don't really need to learn it.
Right. I mean, you pick up enough, and then like the finesse comes later, right?
Yeah, you can get as in depth into it as you want, but you can easily play it without.
You can have a good time without knowing too much. Okay.
As long as you know how to play the maps, that's the main thing. And know your character that you're using a bit, what your benefits of using your character are.
Sure.
Then you can take part and have a good time with it.
So I guess the natural next question is, should Zach and I join you?
I think it'd be good fun trying it, yeah. It's pretty, as I say,
it's free to play, isn't it, right?
Yeah, it's free to play, yeah. And it's pretty light-hearted and...
How does its free to play structure work? Is it like a League of Legends, like free
character
heroes
rotation, yeah.
Okay. Is there any way of unlocking them without money?
Yes, you earn gold, and you can buy characters with it.
Okay.
You don't earn a lot of gold, though.
No.
So, and obviously there's a level, I presume there's a level cap, which I think is 40 is your highest level you can get, as far as I know.
So unless you're a paying user, like you can only
you're only going to be able to get a few characters, but there are like daily challenges that give you more gold and stuff like that.
Okay. Oh, right. So you just basically stop being able to gain experience through play.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the case, but I could only see up to level 40.
Okay.
But
unless 40 is the actual cap.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that is the cap, but
the cap of the caps.
But yeah. But you can buy some of them. You can't because you can only buy with real money, as far as I know.
Right.
But there's very few of those, and obviously some cost more than others.
That's one of those things, right? I'm not necessarily against a model like that. If you've been playing it for enough hours where putting a couple of quid down for a character. Like, I mean, what kind of prices are we talking here? Is it?
Yeah, they're not expensive. I think £2 or £3.
No, okay, that's
maybe
pretty reasonable.
£4 for a character, depending who it is. Or
Do
what
they
it is,
have a way of like try before you buy? Because
yeah, there is a try.
All right,
You can try them all out.
Then that sounds like an okay model to me.
Yeah, I have no problems with that. The only issue is for free users is if you start using a character that you like and then it rotates out. You're kind of fucked because you have to then learn another one or whatever, or just buy it. Which is what they want you to do, presumably.
Yeah.
They're kind of forcing you, right? If you like that character, buy it.
Because presumably, the team layouts at first must be tricky, right? If you're all in because everyone presumably there's a much higher volume of people playing the free character.
Yeah, pretty much everyone in the casual will be using the free characters, and it's a complete clusterfuck. Is it always just one, or do they have a couple of characters? No, it's like 7 or 8.
Oh, wow.
So I think maybe it's 6.
What, 3 at a time?
3 at a time, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
you
a good
can
range.
build good teams.
I think it match makes you depending on who you pick as well, but I'm not 100% on that. So make sure you have a range of people in your team.
Yeah, that's smart though.
I think it does, but I'm not 100% on
that. So you don't get dropped into a room and it does like an international style picking.
No. You pick your character before you matchmake.
Oh, weird.
So you don't have, at least in unranked,
I guess
maybe in ranked you do that, but
I guess that makes sense if you want to actually play as a specific character, right? So that's the Awesome Nauts strategy, right? It's like you can't. I mean, well, actually, Awesome Nauts does it a little differently. You can see what the other people
you pick at the same. It's like the
you can see what your other teammates have picked, but yeah.
But yeah, in this you pick before you even matchmake. So.
I mean, if you want to play as a certain character, that's probably the only way you could, right?
Yeah, but I don't know how that works in ranked, as I say, because I'm not there. But
that must be different.
I would have thought it'd be the same as proper Dota 2 style or whatever.
A picking phase.
But yeah, overall it's pretty good. I've played it for quite a few hours actually. Games last about 20 to 40 minutes, which isn't overly horrendous.
Good length.
And as I say, casual's a bit of a clusterfuck because I was part of the problem as well. I didn't know what I was doing on half the maps because you have to learn what the objectives are and how to do the objectives. But
I guess maybe that's why they put that arbitrary, like, you need to be at this level before you can rank.
Yeah, and there's still stuff I don't understand. Like, I seem to die, like, really easily compared to what I do to other people. But that's just
maybe
part
that's
of the character thing. Yeah, exactly. I don't really know, but it's still pretty fun. And I have been able to do decently, I've jumped in and I've got, like, kills and actually done stuff, which is more than I can say for half the other MOBAs out there.
Yeah. I always wish those games, like, and I mentioned this to you earlier, but, like, just for the record, once more, I always wish those games came with a more, not necessarily controller-friendly control scheme, but more direct rather than the classic, StarCraft mod control scheme. Like I don't see why those games always have to be. I need to control this like a strategy game with only one guy. Like why can't I just take direct control and do this? Even if it's just like WASD to move my character around and mouse to perhaps aim things.
Well, there are reasons for it. So you can you can go round the map while your character's moving
elsewhere.
Yeah, there are reasons for it, I guess.
Maybe.
Like, as I say, you can
tell your character to move over here while
you're looking somewhere else and all this kind of stuff, which you wouldn't be able to do if it was direct control.
But I'm not necessarily sure that's a great idea anyway, in terms of like vision spheres and things like that. But I'd want my team to tell me about stuff like that rather than me seeking it out myself, if you know what I mean. That sounds to... That's just a personal preference. It's like
there are tactical
I kind of want other
reasons for it as well, though, aren't there? Like if there's a battle going on here, you can watch what's going on and then pick your moment for when you appear.
To come in. Yeah, that's true.
So there are reasons for it. Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I definitely see that. I just think maybe that's
especially
not my
for higher
preference,
level play. I imagine that's when it comes into play more.
Yeah, I think maybe that wouldn't be my preference in a game of that style, but then no one seems to have done the MOBA that I really, really want to play other than Awesome Nauts.
Yeah, Awesome Nauts is great. But yeah, I don't know, like the ones that do direct control, like the third person ones, the like, what's it called? Smite?
Smite, yeah.
It's just not very good. I don't like Smite at
God
all.
damn it, Monday night.
Yeah.
It was the one good thing, and it was so far ahead of the game.
Technically a MOBA before MOBAs were called MOBAs, and
Well,
it was
wasn't
really good at it.
LAPD Cop technically a MOBA?
Yeah, actually, you're right. Yeah, we've talked about this before as well. Yeah, what was it called? Was it actually
20 something, wasn't it?
LA? Yeah, I forget. Yeah. But yeah, that game was actually a MOBA.
That was amazing.
It was pretty good
I love that game.
for a PlayStation 1.
I still love that game. I've played it fairly recently.
For a PlayStation 1
couple of years or
multiplayer
so.
mode, that was something.
That was one of my favourite games on PlayStation.
It was a stupid but pretty great game. I mean, there were bits of it that were like kind of level design was quite janky. It was just before, in the days where people were still trying to figure out how to guide you through 3D worlds, and it's like, where the bloody hell am I supposed to go?
Camera angles.
Yeah, there was a lot of that in that game, but it was just like, I've got ridiculous weapons and I'm going to blow shit up as a walking chicken thing. It was awesome. And yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the first MOBA I've ever played. It's multiplayer. Multiplayer was really clever.
Yeah, it was good.
It was a good game. Future Cop?
Yeah.
Future Cop,
That's
yeah.
what it was.
Future Cop LAPD or something?
Yeah, that's it.
How about, if we're talking about games that are actually MOBAs, how about Return Fire?
Yeah. That was kind of
Man, yeah, you might be... But there's
I
no,
love that
there's
game
not-
as well.
There isn't really a mob round on that. There isn't really
There are mobs, there's turrets and little dudes that don't really do anything, but
Yeah,
they're around.
You just run them over. There isn't really a creep, and the creep's not really important.
But there's turrets.
There are
And that's
turrets.
like the major thing. You're trying to fight your way into the enemy base to get the flag.
Yeah.
That's very like how the MOBA thing works.
Yeah, it's not really a...
No, it's not really. I thought that was funny.
It's not really a MOBA, but yeah, there are some...
There's even character classes, basically.
yeah, kinda.
That was a great game.
It's a weird game.
I used to love that game.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun as a kid. I bet it doesn't hold up at all well.
No, probably not. It's like ancient now.
That giant single WAV file. Well, which probably isn't giant by today's standards.
No, probably
but,
not.
that had all
I
this...
mean, it is still a WAV file, so that automatically makes it pretty big.
Yeah, the bulk of that game, wasn't it? Like, the actual game code was like a few megs here and there. Like, but the just single WAV file that had all the vehicle music in it.
Yep. Very important. Wasn't the same game without it.
No, definitely wasn't. You need to ride the Valkyries as a helicopter.
Yep, definitely.
Or do what I always do and do nothing but tank. Always tank.
No, the missile launcher.
Oh,
was
sorry,
the
yeah,
best
missile
one.
launcher. Yeah, that was it. Sorry, I forgot that thing. I only remembered the tank, the jeep, and the chopper. Return Fire.
So, yeah, any more games? Give us anything else.
Any more games?
StarCraft 2.
Yeah, we
I played the second campaign.
haven't got to the third one yet.
Well, I have now, but
Okay. Yeah.
haven't started it yet. But yeah.
When
The
you get...
campaigns are actually pretty fun on that.
No, apparently that's pretty good.
Yeah, they're really good.
Although, I don't know the detail, but apparently the ending to the third one is all kinds of messed up.
Well,
Is it?
it was basically like the whole of StarCraft 2 is like a horrible mess in terms
Well,
of like
yeah.
all the. It's basically they've done the classic thing of just like all the story threads are mashing into each other, and then they all have to get tied up at some point as well.
Yeah. The resolution they choose is apparently insane.
It's pretty...
And quite
I don't-
final for StarCraft, perhaps, is the other implication.
The story's pretty fucking complicated anyway to try and follow as you're playing through those campaigns.
Yeah, like it wasn't very complicated in the original StarCraft. It's like there's mutant aliens and these other aliens and then the humans and they all fight. And
It's
that's
like,
it.
it's like I hadn't played
Once they started
StarCraft.
crossing everyone over, that was when it got problematic.
Oh, yeah, when you ended up with, what was it?
You got Kerrigan and
Kerrigan,
the
that's it.
Zerg, and then you've got weird Zerg Protoss crossovers as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, it's like I played the first campaign years ago now.
oh, sure. What is it, like 5 years old now?
Yeah, 5 years, something like that. And then obviously I only just
7 years,
played the
maybe.
second one like a few months ago, a couple of
So
months
you have to
ago.
remember what the fuck was
Yeah,
going on.
and there's a handy thing that says, "Oh, the story so far."
Oh,
I'll
that's
click
cool.
that. It lasts about 15 minutes, and I had literally no idea what the fuck was going on. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm glad I watched that. Thank you." So yeah, it's just so overly complicated. But if you just forget the story and just play the game, it's pretty good.
It's got the guy that was Q from Star Trek doing a Protoss voice.
But it's a Protoss voice that you can barely tell.
Yeah, there's one character because the second one is the Zerg campaign, and there's one character called Abatha, and his voice is fucking amazing. It's so cool. It's probably the best sounding character ever. It's so good.
Abatha, okay.
I think it's Abatha, something like that. But yeah, he's really cool. I think you've got my original.
I have got your copy of StarCraft, yes. Of StarCraft 2.
Yeah, the first one.
Which I never actually installed.
No, I didn't think you would.
I thought about it for a bit, but then thought I've got these other things to play, and then kind of got about it.
Yeah, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. I think I probably played it on too easy a difficulty.
You reckon?
Yeah, it wasn't particularly tough.
Can you up it for the third part, you reckon?
Yeah, maybe, but I kind of just enjoy playing the games without the difficulty. Like, I like just playing through it.
Right,
I don't want them to be hard, really.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's the classic trouble with like RTS games is like they tend to be such a time investment per level you don't want to fail.
Yeah.
Because if you've spent like 30 minutes and then right at the end you're like, oh fuck, I didn't win.
I mean, I think like World in Conflict perhaps got around that, right? It had like checkpoints and...
Well, it was like much more like objective oriented.
Yeah.
You weren't just building a massive force and then mashing them against each other.
Yeah, you didn't have to deal
There
with
wasn't
all the
much
stuff.
of that in the campaign, actually.
No, yeah. I mean,
There's a lot more objective based missions and stuff in
Where's
StarCraft.
my World in
2.
Conflict follow-up?
yeah, exactly. Another game that
I can't remember who owns that now.
It's, well, it used
the
to be
company that
developed by
made Massive is still a thing.
Oh, Massive.
They
owned
made
by
something
Ubisoft, isn't
Yeah,
it?
Massive
They're
owned by
making-
Ubisoft, and they've worked on a lot of the Assassin's Creed games as one of the million studios.
Well,
that,
naturally.
Aren't they
They're
making the
half
new the Division?
they are working
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
Division. Yeah,
I knew there was something they were making.
yeah, they are indeed working on the Division right now.
Which actually looks pretty cool. I've played some of it already.
Are you allowed to say that?
Well, there was a beta, wasn't
No,
there?
there was a
an
proper
alpha.
beta, was there?
There was an alpha, yeah. Well, not beta, alpha, yeah.
Okay.
Played the alpha. It's pretty alright.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it'll be a fun game to play co-op, is what I'm
That's what
thinking.
maybe, yeah. I think that game will entirely hinge on getting a team together.
Yeah, like the missions and stuff are pretty fun to do. And obviously all the loot and shit, which is always fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's real world Borderlands.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of...
Paint cans you can shoot.
It kind of reminds me of like MMOs in some way because like groups of mobs keep respawning and shit like that. But it's pretty fun. Yeah.
You played much Splatoon since
Splatoon,
we did
no,
it?
I haven't played it since.
Oh, what? See, like I made a
I
comment
think
last
it's just
time
the
that
Wii.
actually,
Like if it was on Xbox, I'd probably play it way more. It's just because I don't particularly like playing the Wii. I think I just don't never feel the need to turn my Wii on.
I mean, we made a comment last time that I don't know if I said it to you while we were playing, but it's weird that like playing with you again and playing against, admittedly, like level 1 to level 5 characters, or whoever we were going up against, was kind of interesting. Not only because I have actually got better at this game, kind of realization, but secondly, all of the people were European again, whereas at my level everyone's Japanese, and that's weird.
I was so bad at that though. Well hard.
It's easy in terms of shooters. It's like,
Yeah, but I'm bad at it. Is the problem.
and you just have to once you get the hang of that motion aiming, it's like
I turned all that off.
Oh really?
I couldn't deal with that.
Oh man.
I literally couldn't aim with that.
Oh, that's my jam.
It's your secret,
Yeah.
apparently.
I love that thing. Unless I get into like the only problem I have with the motion controls is when it's a proper oh my god moment, as you obviously freak out and like you go wah, and then you shoot all over the place, and you lose that round. But it's like, if you're doing it, if you're the guy in control of the situation, that motion controls are great. I love it.
I just can't be bothered with motion controls anymore. I'm just kind of done with that.
I mean, there are circumstances where it's still cool. Splatoon is the one.
I'm not saying it's bad. I just can't be bothered with it all now.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Star Fox is... Oh, wait. Star Fox is, I think got a June release date. Maybe that's news.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm kind of hoping that's still good. And they've given it so much more time now.
Yeah.
That, in the incubator. And I didn't think it was terrible at EGX. But I may be one of the few, as it turns out. But, it's had a lot more time. Maybe it'll be a bit stronger. You know, I'm hoping that weird dual screen mechanic works.
You know, suddenly they'll come back and it'll be about a planet of dinosaurs somehow. Whoops!
Yeah. Oh man, what we did? Tricky's back. Oh god, he can fly an R-wing now.
I'm surprised that hasn't already happened, really.
He's got no hands.
So?
A little bit of some sort of robot appendage.
They could quite easily come up with
But it is
dinosaur controls for spaceships.
It is in a universe where R-wing pilots had their legs chopped off.
Supposedly.
Yeah. Supposedly. Because everyone has robot legs. So that's Kippers' game.
That is Kippers' game.
I've played some other things. But,
Oh yes, of course. Plenty of other things.
like Roundabout I played. That was pretty fun.
Oh shit, yeah.
It was kind of pointless in a way because
They are able to pretty good description of that game.
well, like the game's fine and everything. Like it's good fun.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoy playing it, but it's just like you can play through the game and not give any shits at all, and you can still play through it.
Hey.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like you can't fail really.
Oh really? Oh, okay, so it's not like I assumed it was more like Kura and that
Yeah,
sort of
no.
like level of like 2 hits and you're out kind of thing.
You die, but you just carry on.
Oh weird.
So it's like you can't really fail. I mean, there's obviously challenges that you have to get within the missions if you want to.
Oh,
But generally
okay.
speaking, you
I
can
think
just
I
play.
misjudged the structure of this game then.
You can literally just plow through it and just die all the time and don't give a fuck. Which is how I like to play, because I really don't like perfecting things when I play. I just like to
Okay.
play it for fun.
I think there are certain games where that really where the perfectionist route grabs you and you keep going
Yeah.
at it. But yeah, there aren't many.
I mean, if I wanted to, I could go back and redo all the missions and do them better and stuff. But I really just don't care. I just want to play it and have fun. You know, that's how I play games now. Like I don't have time to do it better half the time.
I mean, that's a sign of just losing more and more time to.
There's so many games now. I don't have time to.
Yeah, there's that too.
play them properly.
In a way, that's my thing. Like, I'd quite like to play more games rather than sink more time into a single one. It's like
Yeah, it's like I could put a game on extremely hard and struggle through it, but I'd just have more fun playing it on medium and just get through it.
Yeah, it's like I've kind of fallen off trying to finish Halo 5 in Legendary for that reason. Like, in a way, I just sort of stopped. And it's like I'd rather just play the multiplayer and have a good time.
Yeah.
And it's like I do want to finish that game in Legendary. I do want to see what the secret ending is. Legitimately, before I look it up online.
Yes, exactly.
But I just haven't found my... The problem... Right. This is kind of tying into what... the last time I played Halo 5's campaign was the first time you meet Warden Eternal, which is one of those kind of terrible boss fights in that game where it's clearly designed for co-op, because you need one guy to distract him and your other guys to shoot him in the back. Or... You need to get lucky and get yourself a super weapon before the fight, in which case you're going to be okay. But man, that was the single crappiest bit of Halo I've played in a long time, was trying to do that boss in single player Legendary. That was not a great deal of fun. And that's only the first one of those. There's he appears several times later in the campaign, and one time there's 6 of him at once. Spoiler alert, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet.
But boy, yeah, that's a bastard. He turns up in Warzone, like Warden Eternal, so you might have seen him there. But
yeah, I know who he is.
he's an asshole. He's actually a kind of cool character in the game, and if you have he has some funny things to say if you're playing with "I would have been your daddy" mode turned on. But yeah, he's a super annoying boss to fight, and I'm not looking forward to. I think that put me off doing any more of it, because it's like I know I'm going to have to fight you again.
Well, I'll play with you on Legendary if you want.
Yeah, maybe it'll be. I'm trying to do it in the runs of finding all the stuff as well.
Oh,
And so I'm using a guide. I have to admit.
yeah,
because
that's part of the thing as well with games.
it's like collectibles, man.
Collectibles, yeah.
I talked about this
I can't
before.
be bothered with
yeah.
it.
I want that Chivo, but at the same time, it's like I'm not really interested in your random audio logs.
It's like achievements, just like going on a bit of a tangent. Achievements themselves are often pretty stupid now. Like the Tomb Raider ones were stuff like, oh, you have to kill 6 people in 6 bullets with this gun and stuff like that. It's just like,
Oh, I kind of like those.
yeah,
ones.
no, there's nothing
They're
wrong
a bit
with
more
it.
inventive.
But at the same time, like, if I'm playing the game, you could at least make it relevant to what I'm doing in the game, rather than make me try and do something I really don't want to do.
I suppose Tomb Raider is one of those ones where maybe they could tie it to like
I guess
a costume unlock
or
a secret like benefit to one of your guns, maybe.
Well, I guess the point is it's supposed to be done in the secondary modes, which are like
the challenge
score
modes.
Yeah, the challenge and score modes, or whatever, which kind of makes more sense, I guess. But,
maybe, yeah.
But just achievements like that in general, kind of like if it has a point in the game, then yeah. But generally, a lot of these achievements now, like nearly 50% of achievements in games, you're not going to get from playing the game unless you do stupid stuff.
There'll be odd stuff. Yeah, I mean, Halo has always had quite a lot of those.
All Microsoft games tend to do that.
I quite like them when they're more inventive. I mean, yes, I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder for like when I'm starting to play a game, I kind of want to get a decent amount of the achievements. Like I don't have to get them all. But I kind of want to feel like I've got I've had a suitable number of achievements for the amount of time I've put into the game.
Yeah, exactly.
On Steam, that does. I mean, I even care about it a little bit on Steam, which is stupid because Steam achievements mean nothing.
Steam.
Right? They don't mean anything anywhere. But Steam has that one annoying stat that I really want to push up, which is like, average achievement completion, and mine's at like 44%. And just starting a game always knocks it down by 1%. So then I feel like it's like on average, and it's like, oh man, I need to push this achievement rating up I can.
You were screwed with that from the start because you played Team Fortress.
Well,
which has like 500 achievements, and you're only going to get like 200.
I've got like 60% of them though. It's like
yes, but it's never going to get any higher than that.
No, but 60% is higher than my average, so that's fine. And there are certain games where the achievements are just intentionally impossible, like really, really difficult things.
Or Rob's favourite thing about Dirt Rally.
Impossible?
No, the achievement from playing it in early access.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I meant. Like, if you bought the game now, it's impossible to 100% that game.
Wow, that's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all.
Nope, that's dumb. I mean, Xbox have been known to do that as well, but they've made them zero gamer score at least. I mean, you couldn't 100% the game, but
like what?
I can't really remember. There were
I don't think there's any games that you can't complete if you didn't buy it early.
No, sorry, not buy early, but like weird event things, perhaps things you couldn't only achieve. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
And like they were. Do you remember Dead or Alive 4 had achievements for de-ranking your player? Like, so you started at like rank C or something, and there were 0-point achievements for getting it down to F.
Oh god.
Or something. So you had to purposely go into fights and throw the match to get 0-point achievements. It's the worst. And then work your way back up to get the ridiculous rank achievements, which are super hard to get.
Yep, ridiculous.
And worth points. Achievements are stupid, but weirdly, just because they're a metric,
yeah,
you kind of want them to be higher. I want the numbers to go up.
Speaking of games Kippers potentially played and achievements and stuff like that, and games Kippers that wants to play in a casual kind of way.
Yeah.
I played quite a lot of Binding of Isaac.
Oh yeah, I started playing that again.
And so did Kippers.
Yeah.
That Rebirth version.
Yeah, I just got the Afterbirth.
Yeah, you got the expansion as well, which apparently is even more ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But yeah, I've played quite a lot of Rebirth, and that seems like a real easy version of that game compared to the Flash one. Comparatively. I mean, apart from it just worked better in general, which is nice.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's easier, but at the start it definitely is.
Well, I mean, at the start you've sort of, if you've played the previous one, you've sort of got the advantage of the game is easier at the start because that's just how that game works.
Yeah, exactly. They've changed the curve so it just starts easier.
No, I mean, even the original Isaac is also easier at the start because there's there's the actual thing where once you beat Mum's heart, the game just gets harder. Like, more champion enemies, different versions of champion enemies, multiple floors and stuff. Yeah, different floors.
Different versions of the floors.
So starting fresh in Rebirth, it is literally easier.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right.
Because you've gone back to a zero save file,
and does it not do that once you've beaten to a certain point? Does it make the whole game harder?
Well, yeah, it does.
Well?
But you build back up to that through the same... Because if you've come off the original Isaac, you're used to it being harder.
Sure.
But in general,
does the new one offer you the ability to go back and play it as if you hadn't?
Yeah, it has save files now, which is actually nice.
Oh, okay. I kind of want it to like be an option, right? To just be like, I want to start a run at this level before I did these things.
Well,
like,
you just made a new save file. I mean,
yeah, I know, but that's not quite the same. Maybe there was like a middle ground where it was most enjoyable for you before things got like ridiculous.
But most of the difficulty comes from what items you get.
Yeah. And I think that's also the other thing that I've been finding a lot in the early rounds is like
there's better items
before you've unlocked a lot of stuff. It seems easier because there is just like there's very few things that are actually going to fuck you as much.
Yeah, but
mostly.
There's I think there's like 3 or 4 times the amount of items in the original once you've got Afterbirth.
Yeah.
So I'm finding it really tough because there's a lot of shit items in there. Well, so I keep getting really shit items.
It's like it's been weird, like the starting from fresh and just all the runs that I've been playing. I don't think I've had, without the expansion obviously, but I don't think I've had a single case where I've actually got fucked by, because obviously in the early game you're just touching everything because you want to unlock it for the list. Yeah. So you're just picking up everything even though you don't know what the fuck it does. But I don't think I've really had a case where it's screwed me. I think they've almost always come out viable somehow. I don't know if that could just be luck, of course, because the whole game is luck to some extent, but I've been finding it quite easy.
Well, it's not like things don't work together. It's just getting a good item at all. Really.
Yeah, I mean, you can...
Because you can get a load of items that work together, but they're just utter shit.
Yeah, if you get sucky stuff right at the start, that is, of course, and just makes everything way more difficult.
That's pretty much my experience with the original Binding of Isaac. My luck in games in general is super low. So, the majority of times I played that game, the first thing I would get would be like, oh yeah, tears down. Oh great, I'm screwed now really badly, and I won't get a single tears update for the rest of the game. It's
just like, for example, I had a run, because I'm recording it as a video series on a new save, and my second run, which I haven't actually uploaded yet, was like, I was doing really well. I was right up to the last floor, but because I didn't get any health drops for like 3 floors, I died. Because I didn't get a single fucking health drop.
Well, I think the one thing that is more difficult about the new version compared to the old version is the health management. Because now that you can't go off, now that you can't overstack, it's like you actually sometimes have to think, I don't want that HP up because I want to still have space for soul hearts because I'm still getting soul hearts.
I see.
You want to have them available to fill up that last bit of your health bar or whatever, or sometimes you don't, or sometimes you don't want any health. And of course, related to that is like, because now there's slightly less chance of getting health up anyway, it like changes the dynamic of what devil room items you want to take because they sacrifice your health and all that stuff. So
it's a very complicated game.
Yes, you have to learn it, but yeah, the way everything combines better now is just it makes it. I think that makes it easier because it's easier to find synergies without like risking things. Yeah, because you can get stuff early where you're like, this doesn't really work with anything now, but chances are it probably will. You don't have to plan for a one-off that might happen. It's like, this thing probably combines with 2 or 3 other things that I might get. Yeah. So yeah, that's been ridiculous.
Yeah, Afterbirth is definitely harder than Rebirth.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Because some of the new enemies are well tough. Like, there's a really early enemy, which is like the Diglett things.
Yeah.
There's one like that, but he comes out and he makes the rock waves come out.
Oh, right.
And he has homing tears and something as well. And that's on the floor 1 and 2 that you get those.
Any enemies with homing tears is just that's kind of getting ridiculous already.
Yeah, so it's way tougher.
Because really, homing tears on enemies that's kind of dumb, because the whole point of the game is to be able to avoid the bullets, and when they home onto you, that makes it near impossible. Unless you're curving them around you as you move, which is
the whole thing with the game was it was designed in a way that it's not supposed to be fair. So things like that can happen.
But that's unfair in the mechanical way that the game works. Because it's
it feels against what the game's trying to achieve.
Yeah, because generally it's like a bullet hell style thing, and you're meant to be dodging the shots mostly. That's how you survive.
It's unfair. You could say that about a lot of things about the game, though. There's rooms where you physically can't avoid something. You spawn in a room.
Not as often as they used to be.
Oh no, in Afterbirth it happens more because
Okay.
you now get thin rooms.
Oh yeah, the thin rooms.
Thin and small rooms where you, physically you can't avoid stuff sometimes.
Oh no.
So it's unfair in that way, but that is kind of how it was designed. Like, it's supposed to be unfair at times. You're not supposed to have a... You're supposed to have
The
times where you
masochism of the
physically...
game is the draw.
Yeah.
In a way.
But if you have that few right items, then it won't damage you.
I can see why. Yeah, to me, I think I want for my own personal preferences, I might be a little bit on Zach's side, but I can see why the game is like this. That is the game. That is its thing.
Yeah. No, I understand what Zach's saying. Like, the homing is kind of against of avoiding bullets and stuff. But then there's so many other unfair things in the game as well. That's not really going to take anything away from the game from having that in it.
Can you see the small rooms on the map, or do they just appear as normal?
No, you can see them on the
Oh,
map.
that's good. Because that makes it slightly more fair in theory.
Something I've noticed about it though is the boss room is nearly always through those rooms.
Well, okay.
They've designed it so you have, like, when you get large rooms,
Yeah.
pretty much every time you'll have to go through that room to get to the boss room.
Yeah.
Just because that's how it's been designed.
I mean, there's very rarely cases where there will even be a loop where, like, there's multiple ways to go around something. That's just sort of how that is by default.
Yes, but there are different routes, aren't there?
Yeah,
but you can guarantee if you find a big room, the boss room will be through that somehow. So there's something I've noticed. Like, it seems to be a pattern there that if there is a special room, then you're kind of more likely to be forced through it. Which I think is kind of a bit stupid. Like, I don't think it should be that way.
Well, yeah.
It kind of takes away from the randomness of it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
If you see a big room, you're like, well, I'm going to have to go through that to get to the boss.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
So as soon as you see that, you're like, based on my experience.
But doesn't that
anyway,
sort of help you in some ways?
It
'Cause
can
it's like
do,
if
but
you
if
want to
you're-
get to the boss room first.
Or if you're trying to finish or alternatively, like if you're trying to flush the floor out, at least that's an anchor in a way. 'Cause it's like, oh, I need to not go this way because I want to see the other rooms. And
yeah, it can work both ways, though, can't it?
It just depends what's in the room. That's the important
Yes.
thing. If you get something that really sucks in there.
But yeah, that's just part of the fun of the game, isn't it?
Yep. And, you know,
I really enjoy it.
the other thing that's
Even when it is unfair.
the other thing that's obviously cooler about this version is the fact that there's so many more combinations that actually work.
Yeah, there's hundreds now.
The ridiculous things you can make as stupid. I mean, I had homing brimstone one time, and that was ridiculous. Because, you know, you don't even have to aim. You just fire vaguely in the middle of the room, and it hits literally everything because it just wiggles around.
Yeah, there's some pretty funny combinations you can get.
I haven't had quad anything interesting yet. I want, you know, quad brimstone. I mean, come on. Everyone wants that, surely. That's got to be done.
quad damage.
But yeah, I've played quite a lot of it.
I haven't played that much of it.
I've already got Golden God, so you know.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, well, yeah, I haven't played that much. I've barely completed a run on it yet.
It was dumb. Like, the trouble is that, like, there comes a point where you just... If you have a good run, you tend to become insanely overpowered. Not just, like, slightly overpowered, you just become ridiculously overpowered. Like homing brimstone, where you don't have to aim, you just fire as soon as you walk in the room and everything dies. Like, I had another one where I had chocolate milk, but I was using it rapid fire by just tapping the button because I had shielded tears that absorb enemy bullets, and they split
useful.
on the impact.
Oh.
So I was just like, when you get to the mum's heart fight where it's meant to be a bullet hell thing, just mash the button super fast and it can never shoot you because your bullets are just overtaking it and they're hitting it.
That's cool.
So yeah, sometimes you become a bit ridiculous. Maybe too ridiculous. And there's I was watching a video of it on someone's channel where it was like they got 2 of the items that give you bonus items, so they were getting 4 times as many items. And like they went into the gambling room and like the entire floor was just covered in coins after about 2 seconds. It was just like, everything I do is giving me 4 times as much stuff.
That's quite funny.
Kind of pointless at a certain point, of course. You
Yeah.
just max out the money and you don't need that many bombs or keys, really. So, but still funny.
Yeah, it's just fun, isn't it? Fun little things like that can happen in it, and that's what makes it great. Like, it's because every time you play it, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Like, you're never going to get the same run twice, unless of course you play the seed,
Yes.
the same seed or whatever. Then
Oh,
you will,
they've
but-
allowed that, have they? Like,
yeah,
seed
which is,
codes
yeah,
and-
it was pretty cool.
And there are certain things that you'll probably, you'll naturally go for at some point, and some stuff that's like you almost can't really refrain from going for it, like Guppy transformation. Like it's actually real easy to get that now because they turn
There's
up
like
in raid
more
chests all the
ones,
time,
yeah.
and there's more of them.
Yeah,
And it's like, why wouldn't you? It's just a bonus at a certain point, so you may as well always pick those up unless it's like 9 lives, and then maybe not.
yeah,
So anyway, that's Isaac.
yeah. It's still really good.
Yep, it's a better version of that game, better than the Flash version.
As far as like money for value goes, I think that's probably one of the
Sure.
best games for that.
Especially if you
'Cause it's
buy it on a
relatively
sale.
If you get into it, I think that's the trick. Because I didn't end up playing the original that much. Like, I think I may have... I'm not sure I even beat the original bum boss. I think I got to it several times and then just got obliterated. And just like... No, I haven't seen the good run, I think, when I've been playing that game. It's just been frustrating more than interesting.
That's probably why the newer version is actually also a bonus, because there's ways to... I mean, I guess you could play Eden once you've got some of those, because that's always a fun way to just start powerful.
Yeah, there's also
Sometimes.
there's a lot of other characters in that game now as well. Like Azazel's pretty fun. Like it makes it pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, he has his disadvantage of range.
Yeah,
really,
the range is
but,
pretty shit, but overall he's pretty good.
massive damage output. But then again, that's still something you have to like I said, it's still something you have to unlock, and there's still a certain barrier to overcome of just base Isaac runs to even get
there,
anything interesting. But I feel like that's probably easier in the new version of the game.
But it's like even if you lose every run, eventually you're going to unlock stuff just from keep playing it. You know what I mean?
Touch every item.
You're going to unlock characters. You're going to unlock new items just from playing it, even if you lose all the time. So there's stuff to gain.
And if you want to see something really fancy, you could always go and play a challenge.
yeah, the
See
challenges
something
are
real
pretty funny.
dumb.
The challenges are pretty funny.
I didn't even know about those.
What was the one I did the other day? Oh, it was Cat Got Your Tongue. That was,
The hairball.
oh my god, you
Jesus.
can't shoot tears, and the
Right.
only way you can kill things is with your freaking hairball that you have rotating around you that you have to swing like
man.
Swing like a mace.
yeah.
Oh, wow, that's kind of cool.
I did it eventually, but that was freaking hard.
Yeah, I did. I think the last one I've just been going down the list, but the last one I tried was the Suicide King, which is bloody difficult. You have a boomerang Ipecac tears.
Oh god.
And it's like, so if you miss hitting an enemy, it comes back and hits you, which is virtually impossible to manage.
There's a challenge in Afterbirth that someone was telling me about the other day, which is if your tears hit the walls or floor, you take damage.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
So you literally have to hit
100%
with every,
accuracy.
yeah, or you just kill yourself.
Jeez, that game.
And of course, because it's a challenge, you don't get item rooms.
Yeah.
So it makes it
Can't
even
change
harder.
your luck.
Yeah, I don't know if you've tried the challenge, but when you play
No,
a
I
challenge,
didn't even know this was a thing.
when you play a challenge, you don't get item rooms.
Wow.
So you
Okay.
literally have to rely on what you find in the level or the boss or whatever.
Yeah.
A very fixed level. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're very tough a lot of the time.
Yep.
Jeez.
But still hilarious.
Yeah,
That's where you see some of the possibilities of the combinations.
Like there's one that's orbital, isn't there? So
Yeah.
like, and you basically
Tiny
your
planets.
tears just your tears just constantly go around you in like an orbit rather than going out.
That's fine.
I got that as just in normal runs like 3 or 4 times in
Yeah.
the early game, and it's virtually impossible to use unless you've got something to
Yeah.
combine it with. Like with base Isaac tear firing, that's actually not a good thing to pick up
No,
quite
it's
early.
pretty horrendous. Especially when you get like those spiders.
Yeah, the spiders are just generally like almost the most difficult thing to hit, almost like regardless of what you're using. It's because they dive at you. You have to keep them at range, but not too far, because then they're difficult to hit a different way. And I don't really like those big spiders that can jump from miles away.
Yeah, I hate those.
But that's kind of annoying as well.
There's a lot of things I hate in that game.
Well, naturally. So yeah, played a lot of that, and that was mostly all I played, in fact. I played some amount of Starbound again, because of that last patch that went up, the combat update, the second combat update, I guess, that we talked about.
I really like that game, though. I think it's a great game.
It's fine, but the trouble is that, like, they're basically one more patch away from release. There's going to be one more big major patch and then the release patch. And in the last 2 or 3 patches, probably since you even last played it,
I haven't played it for a while.
Nothing's really changed in terms of, like, the game. It's all been mechanical stuff. So, like, I mean, this combat update, they've rebalanced the combat again for, like, the second time for some reason. And introduced, like custom-designed enemies rather than randomly generated enemies.
Oh, okay.
Which is sort of nice, apart from... I'm not sure if this is just because they want to show it off, but those enemies get reused way too much. Like, you'll see the same ones over and over, and there's not that many of them, really. So that remains to be seen whether that will change. But so they changed the mechanics of, like, the combat again, but there's still no more missions, and there's no more story. And it's like, that's kind of important for the 1.0 release, the actual progression of how, like, you get your ship and stuff. There's still those dumb side quests where it's like, bring me a single item that you can find somewhere.
It's just the major thing that, Kerbal was holding back for, wasn't it? They wanted to have their progression systems down, as well as improving some of their physics, but,
Yeah. So, it seems like they haven't been making much progress for as long as it's taking, but, like, and then it seems like, do they have enough time to make as much stuff as it seems like they need to? But maybe it's just that they haven't released it. Like, maybe they already have all the plans for the missions and the progress and all that, and it's just not, they don't want to put that in the pre-release version, because then everyone will play it before it comes out, for real. Yeah. So it remains to be seen how that turns out. The new combat is okay. I thought it was going to be bad because they reintroduced contact damage on enemies, which I thought they took out for a reason, but they put it back in, but it's not as bad as I thought it was. It's manageable. And the new weapon abilities are actually pretty cool. Like, all the different weird things you can do. Mainly, I've just found a sword that lets me do another type of dash. So, obviously, I had that, because that makes it well faster travel, because you just go whoop, straight for all the enemies. It's very useful. Especially because the actual tech dash is really shit now. They nerfed that to hell.
Yeah, really?
It really sucks. It's like, it's shorter range, and you can't do that trick where if you jump, you gain extra momentum.
Yeah.
So they got rid of that, and I was like, oh, that sucks. But luckily I found a sword instead that will more or less do the same thing.
But yeah, that game's fun. I like that game.
Yes. I'm just, like, hopefully when it comes out and they've finished building all their systems, and, like, maybe farming doesn't suck as much, and, like, it's actually maybe a system rather than just...
me and Jammy kind of hit a wall with that.
Yeah, I mean...
Because a lot of the missions were, you need to find this specific item.
Yeah.
You basically have to just go to random planets until you find it. And it's just like, I didn't particularly enjoy doing that. It's like, I like having stuff that I can do anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, they did sort of improve the mission structure slightly now that they've started adding this, like, base building aspect where you can bring in, like, tenants into buildings that you make, and then they can generate missions for you as well, related to, like, upgrading the town. Build a house for my neighbour, and then you have to build it in a specific way. So that's sort of nice, but, farming is still the least developed system. And they always said, it was like, well, we want to make farming a viable career. Like, you can grow crops and then sell them for money. And, like, if you make better crops and combine them into food, you could do that now, but it'd be well boring.
Yeah, that stuff always seemed kind of pointless in some ways.
I didn't like when they changed the farming system to make it so that the plants actually require water. That was the problem. Because now every time the plants grow a stage, it dries out the soil, so you have to run over there and water it again.
Oh, God.
It's just like, that's just boring micromanagement. It's no fun at all.
That wasn't there last time.
Can't build a machine to do that for you.
Well, that's what I've been trying to think about, but the trouble is, like, you could theoretically build timed doors that would drop water onto the fields to also water it. But you have to have a very precise amount of water, because if you put too much water in, the crops pop out of the ground.
Oh.
So you'd have to be real careful with that. I was thinking about trying to make a system to do it, but I don't know. Save that for release. Maybe everything will be different and it won't matter.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll just be a sprinkler you can build that's just an item that will do it or something. Who knows? So that's Starbound. And I also, on the 3DS... Well, on the 3DS, the first thing to say is... When we went and saw Star Wars in, like, mid-December, when it came out.
Yeah.
I took my 3DS with me because I was like, holy shit, this is my chance for Street Pass because this is the most number of people I'm ever going to be next to.
Yeah.
And I got like 8 Street Passes out of that. But weirdly, like ever since then, pretty much every time I've gone out with my 3DS in my bag, I've still got 1 or 2 Street Passes.
No.
It's just like, did the 3DS become a Christmas present suddenly?
Yes, that is exactly why.
Well, no, but I meant like this year of all years, suddenly it's the Christmas present that apparently everyone has.
It's not like there's been like a brain training or something come out that makes it
No.
super like.
Like, there's no
widespread
reason
appeal.
for people to suddenly have more of them, but apparently they do. Like, I get Street Passes when I go to Tesco's, and I'm like, that's weird.
Maybe one of the Tesco staff has it.
Well, I got 2 last time I went. Interestingly, they're timestamped, so I got like one pretty much when I entered Tesco's and one when I left, which is weird. It was weirdly timed to the exact amount of time I was in Tesco's. So yeah, I've got some more Street Passes, which is nice, I guess. Complete some more puzzle panel crap with anyone who actually has puzzle panel pieces. Which, because those are a Street Pass thing, not everyone has that many. But mainly, I played some more SteamWorld Heist, which, that's continued to be fine, a good game. Haven't really progressed the story that much, I've just been grinding, because I wanted to level everyone up evenly, to see if they got interesting skills and whatnot. Mm-hmm. That's still fine. Unlock some more hats.
Yeah, it's all about the hats, okay.
Yeah. There's been this one mission that I've been trying to get the hat spawns as like semi-random, so like if you replay the same mission, occasionally one guy might have an interesting hat, but not every time. And there's this one mission I've been replaying, which is maybe not the best place to even try and harvest a hat from, but basically it's this mission where you open the door and it's basically a freeway fight between you and then 2 other enemy factions. And it's really awkward to try and claim the hats because it's like you have to try and get into a position to shoot the hat off their guy before they fight each other and kill each other.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Which is really
A
awkward.
bit of a race against time.
And also that's like one of the levels that has a set layout, and the set layout kind of sucks for doing anything really. It's like as soon as you move into the arena, you just expose yourself to a ridiculous amount of fire because you're way high up and everyone can shoot up through the floor into you.
Oh, wow, okay.
So like the cover that's up there doesn't actually help. So that's kind of annoying, but yeah, I've been continuing to play that a bit. We'll see how that goes. And also on the 3DS, I've been continuing to play the dumb free-to-play Pokemon Picross.
Oh, God.
Which is...
You still haven't hit the limit, then? Or...
Well, no, I have hit the limit quite severely.
Oh,
I've just
okay.
been playing like the daily, to build up the money to unlock the next thing. And it's slowed down significantly. Mainly, it's like I haven't quite reached the maximum level of the daily, which is really annoying. Because it's like the daily challenges is like, do 5 of these 7x7 puzzles within a time limit and then you level up. But I haven't managed to do... I'm only at level 8 out of 10 because I can't do it fucking fast enough. And there's like, sometimes it just feels like it gives you ones that are really difficult and sometimes they're kind of easier, but I still haven't managed to pull it off. I haven't put together the perfect set where I'm like, I can do this like, and then just draw it in. But yeah, I've been grinding that as much as it's possible to be ground, which isn't much. So that's pretty much reaching the end of its life for me. And the dumb thing about it is like there's still a lot of stuff that's just ludicrously expensive that you'd never be able to get in the free-to-play. Like, because I think I mentioned it the first time we talked about it, it's like, it might as well be a demo rather than free-to-play. Like, the money limits for unlocking stuff is so harsh that once you've burned through the free money, it's just like, you're done.
Yeah, it's possible, but perhaps they've got the boundaries just about wrong, so it's not really appealing anymore.
It's like, it's just about wrong for progressing through the game like the basic game, but it's very, very wrong for if you want to do any of the special, like, the alternate world and the, like, Mega Evolution Pokemon. Yeah. That stuff just costs a ludicrous amount. And you're never going to be able to save up that much through just free-to-playing it. So yeah, that's kind of dumb and annoying.
Yeah, I got to make some money somehow.
Yes, but if you're going to try and make a free-to-play game, make a logical free-to-play game. Don't make an illogical free-to-play game.
Yeah.
They didn't really understand what the concept was. Because it's like, because it's such a harsh limit, like a demo, it doesn't it doesn't trick you into buying small quantities of the currency over time.
Okay,
it's like you hit the limit and then you're like, well, if I want to unlock this, I might as well buy enough to unlock it fully.
Yeah, sure.
So they're not going to make more money than they could have from just selling it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Is there not just like just unlock the game?
Essentially, there is, yeah.
Okay.
But it's just like that's the point.
Yeah.
It's like, because of that, they've made it so that it's not really going to sucker people into the free-to-play model. They didn't really understand what the concept of it was, as Nintendo is wont to do.
It's a Nintendo-like solution.
Yep. What have you played, Rob? Anything?
Conveniently, not a great deal because we're running a bit long.
Nah.
I'm proper hungry now.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I really need the loo, which doesn't help. So I will crap through this quickly.
You put things out and put things in.
Yep, definitely, and it'll make space. I played some more NGS5, but I will talk more about that when Dan's about.
Yep, that would be
Africa kind of sucks. I don't know, since I've got there, that the game has been less fun. It's just more open is the problem.
That is what people said about Africa.
You just sort of... Your only option is to crawl around everywhere.
Really slowly.
Yeah, or just murder every dude you see, but then that can go wrong real fast. Also, I've been trying to use Quiet as a buddy to build up my bond level, because people say she's good and stuff, but she's awful at scouting. She doesn't highlight half the people in certain bases.
Well, she's probably bad at the start. That's the thing.
Yeah, well, she just doesn't. Yeah, she just doesn't seem to highlight all the people in bases. I've managed to give her the Trank sniper rifle.
Yeah.
Better than the Kill sniper rifle, but it's not silenced. So when it goes off, everyone still goes into alert status, and will occasionally start shooting at her, which I can't work out as a good or a bad thing because it makes them a bit more erratic. Their vision, soldier vision, always gets better when they increase in
alert.
When their alert status increases, and so sometimes you can take advantage of it because you can just they'll all be facing where they think the sniper is, so you can creep behind them in one particular direction. But then that makes you doubly screwed if you're in between firing lines and they're all looking one way, right? Because there'll always come a moment where you're going to cross someone's path,
right? And
they're not going to turn around because they're not in their normal route, and that becomes a bastard. You can, if you're lucky, you might be able to see the guy and tell Quiet to just shoot the fucker.
Yep.
But then that doesn't help your alert status go down. You're just accentuating the amount of time you're going to be in this state. So I don't know. Eventually, you can get silenced sniper rifles, which is obviously stupid, but would be incredibly helpful. So maybe that would be better. But at the moment, D-Dog is still well, the dog's bollocks. But the problem is I don't want to call him in because if I want to swap him out for something so I can traverse the world easier, he gets really upset and you lose your bond level, and the bond level's really important.
That's the most ridiculous character trait thing. It's
don't send me away, please. Don't get me killed.
Literally penalising you for swapping to other things that you've unlocked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only with the dog, I think. If you swap Quiet out, for instance, she doesn't care.
The dog in Fallout doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
The dog in Fallout will somehow make its way miles across the map back to your house if you tell it to.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
It's very convenient.
So there's that. I'm still playing it. Not as much as I used to. I'm not quite as... I think it's starting to wear thin, I think.
Right.
It needs to be doing more stuff than it is now. And I guess the only other really thing, when no need to talk about Rocket League, no need to really talk about Halo, is I've still been playing quite a bit more Fast Racing Neo. Friggin' love that game.
You unlock the faster.
I unlocked the faster league, yeah. So I've gone from subsonic to supersonic, and it's quite a lot quicker and quite a lot harder. To the point where the game gives you some stats about where you place in each championship, what your championship times were.
Right.
Gives you a nice internet ranking. And it's the number of people that... Only a quarter of the people that managed to complete the first championship managed to complete the first championship of Supersonic. So the drop-off is quite large. And I guess that makes sense, because the game is hard. For a Nintendo platform game, it's difficult. I suppose there has been news on the Fast Racing Neo front.
Right.
Shin'en have said they're not doing DLC for the game. They've taken the stance, which I think is reasonably admirable. Like they've just we just wanted to put out the game, right? They just wanted to make the game they wanted to make and put it out and say this is the game in a very old school way. Yeah. That was what they were trying to do, and they've done that. The game is complete. The problem is that I like it enough that I want more of it. And now that's not going to happen, that's kind of a bummer.
I assume you see all the tracks before you've got all the speeds, right?
Yeah. You play. Yeah. It's got 16 courses, which isn't, it's not a bad number, but it's you see them all before while you're in Subsonic. So now in Supersonic, you're just playing them all again, but faster. Yeah. And I'm still finding myself drawn in by the time trial challenges, which even in Subsonic are really hard. Really hard. Like I figure out what is the correct machine for this course to eke out an extra second, so I can just beat this time. I'm like 1 second out on one of the courses, and it's like I really want to beat this because I think I'm doing perfect runs, but I must be doing something.
But apparently not.
Yeah, there must be a quicker way of doing it. And like we were talking about before, these games where it demands perfection to do it, and sometimes that isn't fun.
Yeah.
Here, that is absolutely the fun, and I love it. And it's. Future Racing, come back, man. I miss you.
Oh, speaking of Future Racing, I did try out the Grip Alpha.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm on Kickstarter that.
Okay, yeah.
And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, tell us about Grip again, just to remind me.
Basically, it's like the roll cage.
Oh, that's that, right, yes.
The new roll cage, basically. And it's super early. You can tell it's super early in development, but it's still pretty awesome.
Okay, they're onto something, you reckon?
Yeah. It's ridiculously fast.
Yeah.
And it looks really awesome because it's Unreal Engine 4.
Sweet.
So it looks pretty sweet. But yeah, it's super early, so it's pretty hard to tell much about it, but
yeah,
it's got a good start.
Cool. Good to hear.
It could be good.
They've probably got further with that than Formula Fusion has.
Yeah, probably.
Wait. Well, I think we better call it.
Yeah, I think we had better, which means you need to stand up.
I do, very slowly, without making my bladder empty.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Go on.
Harder than it looks.
Effort it up. Right. Okay, Internet, that's the end of the podcast.
Okay, Internet, that's your lot.
Yep. Get out there and make gifs of things as you do. That's what the Internet does. All the gifs.
Go forth and give.
Yeah. Give it up.
Give the gift of gift.
Record some cats.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.